He's never played for a New York team. This city and Frank Robinson have always been linked in a baseball sense. In 1961, Robbie was the National League's MVP as he led Fred Hutchinson's Cincinnati Reds into the World Series against the mighty Yanks. It wasn't Robinson's fault that Cincinnati bowed in 5. 5 years later, a controversial deal sent him to Baltimore, where he hooked up with Brooks Robinson to lead the Birds to a pennant. Frank Robinson became the first ever American and National League MVP, and this homer in Game 4 off Don Drysdale in the World Series completed a sweep of the Dodgers. 3 years later, a great player and great team were mere foils to the improbable saga of the Miracle Mets. Frank Robinson then, Hall of Famer and MVP. Frank Robinson now, possibly on his way to Manager of the Year honors, as his surprising Birds continue to lead in the American League East. It's the Orioles and the Yankees coming up next on the Game of the Week. Classic baseball afternoon in the Bronx as we welcome you to the Game of the Week. Hi, everybody. Bob Costas along with Tony Kubek. Let's take care of the Yankees first. They are plummeting like a rock. 14 games under 500, 11 and a half behind the Orioles, hopelessly out of it in the American League East, apparently a rudderless ship, and in danger of finishing with their worst record since their dynasty lay in ruins in 1967. Much more upbeat story in the other dugout. The Orioles have won 2 of the first 3 in this 5-game series. They lead Toronto by a game and a half. They'll pitch Dave Johnson today. The 29-year-old rookie right-hander is 3-2. The Yankees will go with Walt Terrell, 5-13 in a disastrous season in San Diego before being dealt back to the American League. He's 2 up and 3 down in pinstripes. Let's go down to Tony Kubek. He's with the Orioles, Cal Ripken.
All right, thank you, Bob. Cal, there are still some people around the baseball world, even though the Orioles have been in first place for a little over 3 months, that don't know some of your players. Let me throw some names at you and give me a reaction. Jeff Ballard.
Well, Jeff's been our stopper in the rotation. He had a tremendous start. We wouldn't be where we are without him at this point.
Craig Worthington.
Worthy's a big clutch RBI guy. Everybody looked at his average early and really didn't give him much credit as a hitter. But I tell you what, he's the kind of hitter you want at the plate in a key part of the ball game.
Dave Johnson.
He's got a tremendous heart. He goes out there, he's got very good control, and he has a good intensity about him, and he's picked us up too. When we were on that bad road trip, we needed someone to step in and give us some good innings, and he was that person.
Phil Bradley.
Mr. Consistency. You can rely on him every single day out in left field. He comes to play, he comes to get his hits, he scores runs, he does everything in a very quiet manner.
Greg Olson.
He's a stopper. Again, he's a real big surprise for us. He saved a lot of ball games. When the game gets tight, we want him in the ball game.
Joe Orsulak.
Slack's a very versatile player. He can do a lot of things. He's been a big plus for us as well. He's driven in a lot of runs, and since Mickey Tellison's gone down, he stepped in that number 4 hole, and he's delivered a lot of big hits.
Stanley Jefferson.
Again, he's someone that we didn't plan on having early in the year, and all of a sudden he comes in the lineup, hits a couple of real big home runs against us against some real tough pitchers, and he's given our offense a boost at a time when we needed it.
1.5 game lead.
Well, we still try not to think that we're in first place. We still have a lot of games to go, but the fact of the matter is it's late August and we are in first place, so if it's 1.5 games or whether it's 8 games, it doesn't matter at this stage.
Thank you, Cal. We'll be back to Yankee Stadium with the starting lineups right after this.
For the Orioles, who last year lost 107 while winning 54, they're already 15 wins ahead of last year's pace. They will doubtless have the biggest single-season improvement since the start of divisional play. The Oakland A's under Billy Martin improved 29 games between 1979 and 1980. 31-year-old Walt Terrell, 2-3 for the Yanks. He's won 2 of his last 3 decisions, but it's a little misleading because during that time he's pitched 19 1/3 innings and allowed 11 earned runs and better than a hit per inning pitched. In the mid-'80s, he had a run of 3 straight years, winning 15 or more, topped by his 17-10 record for the division-winning Tigers in 1987. Same story with him as always, Tony. Hard sinker, throws the slider, moves the ball around.
And a palm ball. If he keeps it down, he can throw it any time in the count. It's an important pitch for him. There's a slider he starts it off with. The Orioles, Bob, over the last 23 games have hit .223, and this may sum up their story of the year. Frank Robinson's team has gone 14-9 over that stretch where they haven't hit well.
A 1 pitch to Bradley. Hit towards short. Alvaro Espinosa to his left. Espinosa's wearing number 20, which used to be worn at shortstop by his present Yankee manager, Bucky Dent.
Number 49.
He has been a big surprise with Santana out for the year, finally starting to throw a baseball after elbow surgery. Espinosa is hitting over .290. Not gifted with a lot of speed, but very sure hands, and he makes the double play along with Sachs. Hall, Kelly, star of the future, folks. Kelly's coming alive. Barfield, they're going to try and re-sign him. Mullen shouldn't be here. He's too young, but they lost 2 third basemen. Mattingly, rough night last night, and Guerin, I guess, the catcher of the future.
Yeah, Don Mattingly fanned 3 times last night. Just the 2nd time in his career that's ever happened. And most surprisingly, because Jeff Ballard did it to him, a man who had not struck out more than 3 in any game this year prior to last night when he got 5. 2-0 to the switch hitter Stanley Jefferson, formerly Met property, more recently with San Diego. In for a strike, says the plate umpire Larry Barnett. Greg Kosk at first, Dale Ford at second, John Hirschbeck at third. The 2-1. Hit sharply up the middle, and Jefferson's aboard with 1 out in the first.
Stanley Jefferson, a man who the hitting instructor Tommy McCraw of the Orioles, and he's been Robinson's friend for a long time. He had Jefferson in the minor leagues with the Mets for several years, and was one of the reasons why this man is over here. He loved his running speed, trace of power from the left side. Yes, he can be erratic in the outfield. I mean, they had Finley starting well in the outfield, Brady Anderson. Now they're back in the minor leagues after injuries, and then Jefferson comes on to get key home runs for him.
As he settles into the box, this is consecutive game 1,218 for Cal Ripken Jr.
3rd on the all-time list.
Jefferson has swiped 5. A ball high to Cal. He'll pass Everett Scott at 1,307 sometime next year if the streak continues. And then he'll have to go to 1995 if he's to catch the Iron Horse from behind.
And the streak becomes more improbable and I think more incredible playing the position he does. When you get taken out at second base so often, hard slides, all the duress of the shortstop.
A ball and a strike.
I don't think there's any question that the offense and the defense revolves around Cal Ripken Jr., we see senior in the third base coaching box. Billy Ripken on the DL with a bad throwing shoulder.
The former catcher Johnny Oates is on the lines at first for Frank Robinson.
Mattingly holding him on. This is a situation hitting ball club. They hit the ball the opposite way a lot, especially with Jefferson with speed on first base. Cal has been in a hitting slump, although he's driving in runs. And Frank Robinson knows it's a team not gifted with a whole lot of power. So from spring training on, and that starts with last year, with the groundskeeper out, I think they've got a too soft around first base. What are they talking about?
There's a hole there. I don't know if it's too soft in general, but there's a pit.
They're going to tamp it down. He looked like he was going to smooth it, and perhaps going to bring the one to tamp it out where there's a wet spot and a soft spot, which really would be unusual for the Yankees to soften that field because they've got Sachs and Kelly, and in case Polonia gets in the game, they've got some good base stealers, so they're going to put a drying agent on it. There's a little slick spot, a la Alvin Dark, and used to do it to Maury Wills. Bucky?
During Bucky Dent's tenure here as a player, from 1977 to 82, he saw 7 managerial changes. So it's not exactly as if he walks into this with his eyes closed. He knows exactly what he's getting into. He knows it's very possible he won't be here in April of 1990.
And really no surprise, it's become an old story, the old broken record story with Mr. Steinbrenner, and you get chaos with it at times. And apparently there's a list of the managers. And of course, Ralph Houck resigned. He was not fired.
The last time they won a World Series, they were propelled into it by Bucky Dent's playoff homer off Mike Torres at Fenway Park in 1978. They did win a division title for Dick Hauser, winning 103 games in 1980, then were swept by the Royals in the playoffs, and they won the split season pennant in 81 and lost in 6 to the Dodgers in the World Series. So this will be the first decade since the teens that the Yankees have not won at least one World Championship.
The interesting story about Bucky is the man who now runs. The general manager, Roland Heeman of the Orioles, is the man that traded Bucky Dent. And he said to the Yankee organization, to Gabe Paul, he said, don't you want to have Bucky Dent at shortstop in the 7th game of the World Series? They wanted Guidry in return. They got Gamble, another pitcher, and was hurt from again. So they traded Bucky and hit the big home run in the playoff off Torres.
Now we're ready, and the 1-1 pitch to Ripken. Breaking ball grounded toward the hole, just as you said, Tony. And here's Jefferson wheeling to third as the ball rolls slowly to Barfield. Jesse has a great gun, but he had no play as that ball died on the outfield grass. And the Orioles have runners at the corners with 1 out in the first.
It's something throughout the lineup that Frank Robinson has had them do. And unlike the Earl Weaver style of baseball, they have a lot of sacrifice hits also. And Cal, off the end of the bat, it was a breaking ball away. He was shooting it that way. And you see Jefferson's speed also. It's the way they've generated an offense. And it would not surprise me right now, even with a cleanup hitter, Orsulak up, who hit 3-0 last night with just 4 home runs and got a base hit in a 3-0 count, that they don't start a runner with him out there. It's the way Frank Robinson plays.
The former Pirate hits out of a slightly open stance. Infield looks for the double play. Outside, ball 1.
Orsulak has hit at every spot in the lineup this year.
A ball and a strike. Milwaukee is at Toronto this afternoon. Jimmy Key beat the Brewers last night with the help of a 3-run homer by Ernie Witt. Toronto is now a game and a half back of the Orioles, and Milwaukee, only a half game out a week ago, is now 4.5 behind. We'll keep an eye on the progress of that game for you.
Toronto should win this division. They have the ability. They've been a good finishing team 5 of the last 7 years.
Fouled off 1 and 2. Great pitching pairing at the Sky Dome. It'll be Dave Steve for Toronto and Teddy Higuera for Milwaukee.
You know, that was, I think, the test for the Orioles when Milwaukee, the half-game lead is what Baltimore had. And then Milwaukee threw Higuera and Basio back-to-back. 2 pitchers who were pitching very well, and Baltimore beat them back-to-back. And that showed really that they are the kind of team that can withstand the pressure when somebody was sneaking up. Because the pressure gets a lot more intense when you get in the last 15, 20 ball games.
The Orioles still have 3 left head-to-head with Toronto, and the same number remaining against Milwaukee. 2 on, 1 out, and Terrell working very deliberately. That was accentuated by Orsulak stepping out of the box. And here's the 1-2.
He wanted to keep Orsulak off the plate. Ride the fastball inside, get the strikeout or pop-up, prevent him from looking for the sinker, the pound ball. And it almost came back. You can see the reaction of Orsulak, who was diving into the ball. That's why it looked like it was further inside than it really was.
And the 2-2. Line to left. Hall comes in. Jefferson tags. He's sprinting for the plate. Mullins cuts it off, and it's 1-0 Baltimore. So RBI number 48 for Orsulak.
Number 6, Keith Mullins.
You know, Terrell usually has more success when he's down in the strike zone. But with Orsulak at the plate, Bob, with his speed, it would be difficult to double him up. So he was trying to pop him up or striking him out, and he kept the ball high. He really went away from the strength, Terrell did, but he knew he couldn't get the double play on the ground out. And it backfired as Orsulak hit it very hard.
Keith Moreland is the DH today. It was like getting a call at the last minute from the governor when they sent him from Detroit to Baltimore, from a last-place team to the club occupying the top perch. Bounce it to short, Espinosa. The easy way to sacks. The Orioles settle for a run on 2 singles, and Orsulak's sacrifice fly. Dave Johnson to the mound when we come back. His 6th Major League start goes against this Yankee lineup in a baseball season filled with many sordid stories. What a heartwarming tale Dave Johnson's ascension to the big leagues has been. They called him up from Rochester on August 1st when they had a day-night doubleheader at Fenway Park, and they weren't even sure that they'd sign him to a big league contract. Had the nighttime portion of the doubleheader been rained out, he never would have played in a major league game, at least not this year. They actually had him sign the contract in the bathroom of the visitors clubhouse at Fenway Park an hour before the game, and then they optioned Texas Mike Smith back to AAA.
How about his older brother, who has since passed away from cancer, who was calling scouts and other organizations for him to try and get him a contract to be signed, and it's quite an inspirational story.
He's a native of Middle River, Maryland, a suburb of Baltimore. He and his wife actually live in a trailer park, but he says he's planning to move to classier digs next season. The pitch to Sachs. Bounce past Johnson, but there's Ripken to his left. They keep Sachs off base.
Don't know if it'd be saying too much, but the man in your picture right now may have the best instincts of any shortstop in baseball. Doesn't have the quickness, etc., of an Ozzie Smith. Doesn't have the grace, and maybe even the sure hands of a Tony Fernandez, or the quick feet of Schofield, or the acrobatics of Ozzie Guillen. But he just reads the ball off the bat better than anybody, or as well as anybody. He's very quick. You know, for a guy at 6'4" or 5", he's got quick feet and a quick throwing arm.
Here's the Yankee shortstop, Espinosa. No power without a homer, but a surprising .295 on the outside corner. Johnson was telling me before the game he feels he'll be helped by a complete tour around the league so that the umpires become familiar with the way he pitches, in and out, up and down, and then begin to give him the benefit of the doubt. In the air to shallow right, Orsulak tucks it away.
Last pitch you saw was a little slider. Bob Melvin, who has caught him before, sitting out today, but he says that his curveball is actually better than his slider, and yet he throws his slider more often, for the reason that he wants to save the curveball for tougher hitters in tougher situations. So this is the little slider, sinker ball, change up. You ride the fastball, can get it in on left-handed hitters, the fastball up and in on their fists. Interesting to see if he'll do it in this ballpark with a short porch and right.
Mattingly at .295 with 15 homers. He's driven 84 in. He's trying to go over 100 RBIs for the 5th time in his career. His high was 145 in 1985. In left field, Phil Bradley. Johnson sets them down in order in the bottom half of the 1st and protects the 1-0 lead. Back to the Bronx. Back of the screen in the mezzanine. Traber has started in the 2nd. Orioles leading 1-0, and Terrell misses high. The count.
Early part of the season, there was a pretty good platoon at first base. Randy Milligan and Jim Traber. Milligan's played a little bit more now against different kinds of pitching. Larry Sheets, many thought he would DH today against the right-hander. Moreland is, but Frank Robinson holding Sheets back to have that left-handed pitcher on the bench if he needs it.
The Orioles have been in first place continuously since May 26th. It looked as if they might relinquish the lead last weekend. The 2 top contenders came in and they split 4 with Toronto. And then behind Jeff Ballard, Bob Milacki, and Dave Johnson, their pitcher today, they swept Milwaukee. And the Brewers came in red hot. The Brewers came in as winners of 9 out of 10. And they were turned away.
Brewers lose Gantner, which really hurt them because he was hitting well. He does turn the double play, and he's such a tough player. Then they lose Billy Bates, the kid we saw last week down in Baltimore, and also Billy Spires, the shortstop, both with shoulder injuries. Look, that was a crazy series, Milwaukee and Baltimore. Billy Ripken and Craig Worthington each went down with shoulder injuries, as did Bates and Spires. There's Billy.
He's on the 15-day DL with a bad shoulder, and Rene Gonzalez is at second today. Another 3-2 pitch, and we'll do it again. These are the people Frank Robinson has to make do without. Jay Tibbs had been surprisingly effective. He's unlikely to pitch the rest of the year. Mickey Tettleton probably won't catch, but will come back after having that cyst removed from his knee. Will come back and be able to DH in September.
Still leading the club in home runs at 22, and he's been out for quite a while.
They say that since Bob Melvin became more or less the everyday catcher, he's become much more assertive in that #1 position. Much more aggressive in calling a game and imposing his will on the pitchers. Traber hangs in at 3-2, fouling the sinker away.
Well, Al Jackson, the pitching coach and former Met, and Frank Robinson sat down a couple of weeks ago and decided they're going to go to a 4-man rotation with Ballard, Harnish, Malacky, and of course Dave Johnson. And Al said, look, they did it in the olden days. These are young arms. They don't have a lot of innings pitched, and they're completing games. They're throwing more strikes.
Traber earns the leadoff walk here in the second. It'll bring up Tim Hewlett, who's had only 13 at-bats with the Birds, 4 hits for an average of .308. One of those hits a home run.
And of course, Roland Heeman, the general manager, had him when he was with the White Sox. He knew of Hewlett, a little bit of power, steady hands, and when the injuries hit, he gets called up.
Jamie Quirk is on deck.
This lineup, when you start reading some of those names, almost seems like a mishmash of all kinds of other organizations or some minor leagues, really, and yet they fit the pieces together and they just continue to lead the league, barely, but they're still on top.
They were hanging by a thread for a while. They were like Cary Grant on the cliff in North by Northwest. James Mason stomping on their fingernails, trying to get them to give it up, but they never fell. Third base line, they'll let it go foul. I think all of baseball looked toward Baltimore last weekend. You know, they'd had that 2-14 trip, and they coughed up most of the lead. They'd let Milwaukee get back into it. The Brewers were down by a dozen, and here came a more experienced club, speaking of Tom Trebelhorn's team. They had Toronto coming in first and then Milwaukee, and everybody said, okay, time for the coach to turn into a pumpkin. It may happen yet, but not in August.
The thing is, they're not having any players who have any career years. Cal Ripken certainly isn't. Phil Bradley certainly isn't. Greg Olson has been a big plus with his 20 saves out of the bullpen and the young pitchers. Some of those young pitchers were starting to develop last year under Herm Starrett, former pitching coach here.
The 0-2 pitch.
But we're talking about the Eastern Division American League, out of which more good players have gone or been disabled over the last 3 years than I can recall in many years.
As we mentioned last week, Dan Shaughnessy of the Boston Globe put it well. He said it isn't so much a race. It's like a tractor pull. Sometimes seems as if all the teams are running in quicksand. It's a place where you can lose 17 of 21, as the Orioles did, and never leave first place. Here's the 1-2. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Traber held at first by Mattingly, but no threat to run.
Well, as far as stealing a base, but 2-2, you don't know with Hewlett. I mean, the way Frank Robinson has played, and he has sometimes died by using that vehicle to sword of running, but he has also kept some rallies going and keeps taking chances. Not going.
Got him. Outside corner and at the knees. And a dramatic punch out by Larry Barnett. Paused for effect and sends Hewlett packing.
Number 15, Jamie Quirk.
A pitcher would love to have this pitch called all day long, right near the outside corner and near the knees. It's an unhittable pitch. And the call went to Terrell.
Hewlett's finished, and it brings up Quirk.
How many lives does Jamie have?
Shirley McLean hasn't had as many. This guy's been with Kansas City 3 times.
I'll just set him up, and you just keep throwing the punch.
With the Cardinals, with Milwaukee. He played 3 or 4 games in 1984, I think it was, with the White Sox. He was here with the Yankees. He was with Cleveland for about a week, with the A's earlier this season. He just can't put the guy away. Liner through the middle. Got the web of Terrell's glove. And the Orioles have 2 on with 1 out. Traber stopping at second.
Hit the sinker ball the way you should. Not try and pull it where it might be a 4.63 DP. Went with it up the middle, hit it hard. Kind of pitch I'm sure Terrell wanted to make. Hope to get the ground ball to the right side.
Number 88.
Jamie Quirk. He's 34. Seems like he should be 44.
Whitey say about 5-6 years ago, Whitey Herzog said, look, it's about time you retired. Why don't you go down to the minor leagues? Maybe bring you back as a coach someday. If it works out, you might manage. And he started wearing that catcher's glove and bats from the left side with a little bit of power. Guys that are hard to find.
Rene Gonzalez hitting in the 9th slot. Orioles leading 1-0. And a threat going here in the 2nd. Right field, and softly it drops in front of Barfield. They'll stop Traber at 3rd, and wisely.
Seen the Orioles hitter do this all year long. Remember early in the season we had them a couple of times where you get them in a double play situation, they peck the ball away and go the opposite way, make the double play a little bit harder to come by in the reverse angle. Move base runners, get them to 3rd with less than 2 outs. It's not a dynamic league offense like the 3-run home run offense of Earl Weaver, but Franks knows he doesn't have that kind of talent.
He was named the manager of the year in San Francisco in the early 80s, one season by UPI. He was right around 500 for his 2.5 seasons or so in Cleveland when he became the first black manager in baseball. And if the Orioles win, even though there are others who have done good jobs, you think of Doug Rader in California, Tony La Russa holding it together in Oakland through all the injuries, Cito Gaston propelling the Blue Jays back into contention. If the Orioles win, he's got it locked.
He may, even if they don't. I don't know. Been some good jobs. You look at La Russa with all the injuries, he's not getting much credit. And Rader.
Phil Bradley hit over 300 3 times in Seattle. Had a woeful season in Philadelphia. Could never adjust to the National League.
Second half wasn't bad last year, though, and some said he was the best left fielder in that league last year at the end.
Fouls it off, 1-1. Traber walked after Hewlett was called out on strikes. Quirk and Gonzalez singled. Bases loaded, 1 out for Bradley, who grounded to short to start the game.
Bradley with his running speed. You see Mullins up a little bit. Mattingly, they'll come home. Mullins, if the ball's hit to his left, might go around the horn for the DP. If it's to his right, he might step on 3rd. But if it's at him not too hard, he's going to come home.
Bouncer, will they get 2? They come to the plate. That's their only play. The force to Guerin. Mullins making the throw. So Traber is caught at the dish. And the bases remain loaded, but now with 2 out.
You can see for the sinker baller Terrell, he's up and in with Bradley's speed. Doesn't have time to step on 3rd and go to 1st for the double play. Mullins, who was with Bucky Dent, Columbus, and he has got a lot of rough spots, but Bucky said his throwing is getting smoothed out. Everybody knows he's here because of the injuries, and is very young. He'll strike out a lot, so he is learning on the major league level.
Stanley Jefferson's second at bat. Singled his first time. And scored the game's only run on Orsulak's sacrifice fly. Ball 1 to him. This is just his 74th at bat. Inviting fortune right, of course, for a left-handed batter. 3:14 down the line. Off speed, 2-0. It opens up to 385, then 408 to dead center, 399 in left center, 318 to the left field foul pole. Bouncing ball and it's sacks. They get out of it. The Orioles leave 3, and Terrell maintains order, still 1-0. Mel Hall, and in the ballpark today, a couple of Hall of Famers who used to occupy that 4th slot for the Yankees. You just saw the Clipper. And making his way into our booth, Joe DiMaggio's successor in center field, Mickey Mantle, and we'll talk with Mickey as time permits during this half inning. Mel Hall is hitting .264, 9 homers and 41 RBIs. Dave Johnson's 0-1 pitch. Misses high and away.
When you said a couple of Hall of Famers, you understated by a little bit. How about Catfish was here and Whitey?
I was just talking about the guys who hit cleanup.
Oh, okay.
Catfish and Whitey might have been good hitting pitchers, but I don't think they ever hit 4th.
But in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
It's a great ceremony honoring Allie Reynolds. The plaque's going to be put up in that little garden out in left center field.
Enos Slaughter, another former teammate, was also here.
Eddie Lopat, Spec Shea.
That'll make the seats 2-2.
Al Jackson was talking about Dave Johnson. He said he will remind you a little bit the delivery of Doyle Alexander, the way he follows through. And then Bob Melvin, who's caught him, said he will remind you with his antics on the mound a little bit of Gaylord Perry, touching the back of his hair and the bill of his cap and wiping off his brow and off his wrist.
Down the line and left, Bradley had him play deep and way off the stripe, and it drops in for extra bases. Hall on his way to second, leadoff double.
There's always been a philosophy in this ballpark, even when it was much bigger in right, left center, and dead center field, to kind of give the lines where it's a double, but protect the alleys and take the triples away. And Bradley, with nobody out, playing very deeply.
So up comes Ken Phelps. Big story just the other day in the New York Daily News, where supposedly George Steinbrenner has a hit list of players he's disenchanted with, and according to the story, he had ordered Sid Thrift to get them out of town as quickly as possible, not even wait for the offseason. Phelps was on that list. He can be a free agent, and apparently the Yankees have no intention of re-signing him.
Story denied vigorously by Thrift and Bob Quinn, one of the assistants to Mr. Steinbrenner today. Some feel the story was leaked out of the organization from within.
Utility man Hal Morris was on the list. Switch hitting infielder Wayne Tollison. Luis Polonia, both because his defense is suspect and because of his extracurricular activities last week in Milwaukee, which apparently enraged the boss. And most surprisingly, and perhaps distressingly for Yankee fans, according to the story, Steinbrenner wants to deal Dave Righetti. He feels that Righetti's value would be maximized before September 1st if he could get him to a contender.
But if you blast players like that through the media, do you not diminish their value? They're not that good a team right now. The Yankees, they are in transition.
Righetti behind the fountain with Goose Gossage alongside of him. 3-0 to Phelps. Notice the way Johnson comes to his stretch, Tony. It looks a lot like Rick Russell. He used to come to the set straight up, and Dick Bosman, his minor league pitching coach a year ago, changed the way he came set. He felt that runners were taking all kinds of liberties on him, and now he's got the legs spread and into that little crouch, peers back over his shoulder at Hall, and gets the called strike to Phelps.
Well, the first I saw do that with Bob Forsch when he was with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
To try and prevent runners from going, shorten your stride, go into a glide step. He's not going to overpower many people. But Cal McClish, who now with the Milwaukee organization, talked when he saw him a few years back. He said he's kind of an in and out and a back and forth pitcher. Inside, outside, and changes speeds well. He's got to have good control.
Phelps might not have thought so, but that's a called strike. 3-2. Watch his motion again.
There's not a whole lot deceptive. It's a motion perhaps that is better with a man on first, where you can hold him a little closer. Very slight leg kick and hip turn, and throwing mostly with his arm. He's bounced around so much in the minor leagues, he's had a chance to copy a lot of people's deliveries.
Jesse Barfield on deck. Orioles lead 1-0, bottom of the second. Struck him out. And there was a little bit of hop on that. And, of course, it looks better than it actually would be on the radar gun because he set it up with all the breaking stuff.
He stayed pretty much with fastballs, and aside from trying to get him out, he wanted to get him out at least hitting the ball in left field. Stayed with fastballs. And that uppercut swing of Phelps, and he swings right underneath it. Couldn't put it in play and advance the runner to third. It's one of the basic fundamentals in baseball. If you can do it with a man on second to get him to third with less than 2 outs, it changes the way guy pitches. You may have to bring the infield in, and he just didn't execute it.
Over 100 relatives and friends were on the pass list the first time he pitched in Baltimore. Dozens of them came up to Boston, made the long drive for his first major league start on August 1st in that doubleheader against the Red Sox. And Roland Heeman, the GM, said he was deluged by phone calls from all of Johnson's buddies and family members after that first game, wanting to know if Heeman was going to send him back to the minors. They were going to pick at the ballpark, I guess, if he had done that. Raleigh said no, he pitched well enough to deserve another look. He's pitched complete games in 3 of his last 4 starts. Overall record of 3-2. Barfield has 21 home runs. High 2-0.
And Jesse, since we saw him earlier in the year with Toronto and with the Yankees, has had his swing almost completely reconstructed. He doesn't have that high front leg kick. 242 does not sound very impressive, but when you figure where he came from. Remember early in the year, you fans who watched Barfield, big, high, exaggerated leg kick, and he's really susceptible to almost every pitch except one in the strike zone, inside part of the plate.
Pops it almost straight up. Ripken shades his eyes, and that's the second out. That'll leave it up to Roberto Kelly.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen a more patient Hall of Famer than we've got sitting between us right now? Is he patient? Your old pal? Mantle? Hadn't said a word. We haven't given him a microphone. Saving him for the best.
3 or 4 years ago, I probably would have been on bended knee here. I'm getting increasingly irreverent around the mic. There he is.
You don't have to hear. You're going to let him talk to you, Mick.
Roberto Kelly at 326. He's got 6 home runs. The 326 mark puts him among the league leaders. Kirby Puckett is tops at 336. Wade Boggs 3 points behind. Sweeping curveball misses. Mickey, what do you remember about Frank Robinson in the '61 World Series when you guys played the Cincinnati Reds?
Well, I only got to play one game, so I didn't even watch them. The Yankees beat them 4 out of 5 without me, so it wasn't much of a series. Frank Robinson was a good player. I think he's a lot like me, though. I never did know him for his brains.
Oh, no, wait a minute.
He was a great player.
Well, an honest man finally comes to the booth.
Honest, but perhaps inaccurate.
He's all right.
Here's the 1-1 pitch.
He's doing a great job this year.
Whitey used the comment. You mentioned that '61 World Series. Whitey always talked about how dumb a player you were. That's when you had the infection on your side, and you got in the first game, and you weren't even supposed to play. You tried to, all taped up, and you slid on that same side and tore it up. And
No.
Whitey said, "Why are you so dumb? You didn't ever learn to slide on the other side."
A base hit could tie it here for the Yanks. Bob Guerin is on deck.
You had a chance to see Roberto Kelly in the broadcasting days with the Yankees for a couple of years. Mickey, he's got some talent, doesn't he?
Oh, he's going to be. I think he's going to be really a great ball player. Everybody thinks that.
Hit him square in the back. was a breaking ball, and it was obviously not Johnson's intent.
Gene Monahan out quickly. 2 ball, 1 strike. And in this situation with Guerin, who's got a little power up, although Kelly is hitting over 300, he wasn't trying to hit him. I think he was just trying to get the ball up and in, Mickey, and maybe keep him off the plate looking for a breaking ball or a sinker.
Well, I'm pretty sure he wasn't trying to put him on. They're ahead 1-0, right? I mean, there's no reason to hit him there. I mean, he might have been trying to pitch him in, you know, just back him up a little bit, but he sure in hell, he didn't want to hit him.
Let me ask you something. You were involved in the ceremonies before the game with all the other Hall of Famers honoring Allie Reynolds. What do you remember about Super Chief?
Oh, he was great. I mean, he did that on purpose.
That's why I asked you.
I would like to see Allie pitch to some of these guys that hits the ball out of the ballpark when they know it's going to be a homer and stand at home plate until it goes out of over the roof, you know. I'd love to see him do that against Reynolds. He would have, the next time up, and if he got the ball early enough, he would probably hit him coming across the plate.
Member of that team that won 5 consecutive World Championships, 49 through 53. The 2 no-hitters in, what, 51?
You remember what Yogi said then, 90% of baseball is pitching and the other 20% is...
But mathematics plays no part. Guerin's hitting .321 since he became more or less the regular catcher. He's got 6 home runs.
Tony, you know what? I was sitting with, one of you guys saw me over there, I was sitting with Joe D. And I told him, I said, when we played here, that fence wasn't out there. It was like 457 feet to left center. And Joe's last year was my first year in 1951. He must have hit at least 20 balls that year that were caught out there on that warning track. And he said before that, there was no fence there before those seats. And you had to hit it over that.
That's where it was 461 right there.
Yeah.
And not only 457 to Death Valley in left center, but 402 to the bullpen and straight away left.
Yeah.
Now, if you pulled it down the lines, you're talking 296 and 301. But if you hit it straight away and into the alleys, you were in trouble. Johnson in some trouble here in the second. Misses outside and away.
Now, he would have hit over probably 600 home runs if he'd have played in a regular ballpark.
Missed some years to the service. Joe D did also.
Paul, who doubled at second. Kelly was hit by a pitch at first. In the air, center field. Jefferson and Bradley nearly to the track. Jefferson to put it away. The Yankees threaten, but strand 2, and we're back after these messages asking Mickey Mantle to stick with us from your local stations.
Your Toyota.
Welcome back to the house that Ruth built and the place where DiMaggio and Gehrig and this man, Mickey Mantle, became legends. We're talking about home runs and the old dimensions here. Have you caught the ESPN reruns of Home Run Derby? The other night, I saw you beat Willie Mays. You were down 8-2. You rallied in front of nobody, no one in the ballpark except the batting practice pitchers, and you won 9-8.
I remember that. It was like 1959. I finally got beat. I think Harmon Killebrew beat me finally in that thing. But I enjoy watching that myself.
Why'd you tip it off? I forgot who won. Now oh, nuts.
Tony, did
I wanted to be surprised.
they didn't invite you on Home Run Derby, Tony?
I used to throw in the home run contest for these guys. Moose would get in there, and Elston Howard and Mickey.
Ripken singled to right his first time. Lofts one to left center field. Roberto Kelly is over there to tuck it away. One down in the third with Baltimore leading 1-0. I was talking to Frank Robinson in his office before the game about Home Run Derby. He says he's really gotten a kick out of seeing himself as a very young player going up against Ernie Banks and Jackie Jensen and the rest. And he said, I can't get over how they always called me Frankie Robinson in those days. He said, I tried to get the sports writers and the announcers to stop it. Made me feel like a little kid. But they kept on doing it till I won the MVP in '61.
You know, I shouldn't have said what I did a while ago about that. I mean, a lot of people ask me if I'd ever like to manage, and that's what I always say. You know, I never was known for my brains. But I don't really feel that way about Frank Robinson.
Hey, it's too late now, Mick.
That's right.
When I think about Frank Robinson, I think about how good a ball player he was. I don't think about him as a manager.
2 balls and 1 strike to Orsulak. Robinson is 4th on the all-time home run list. Just missed 600. He's at 586, exactly 50 more than Mickey Mantle's career total, and behind only Aaron, Ruth, and Mays. 3-1.
Last time you remember a cleanup hitter coming to the Yankee Stadium with that short porch on the left side, having 4 home runs. I guess he's holding that spot till Mickey Tettleton gets back.
Well, probably making about $1.5 million, right?
Full count. Well, you knew the Orioles couldn't go wrong with Tettleton. He's a switch hitter from Oklahoma named Mickey. Here's the payoff. Tried to wait on the off-speed pitch, lines it foul.
Mick, when you come back here and you come from various affairs and you're probably more popular in this city than anyplace else, or does it upset you with the way managers are fired and with the turmoil that surrounds this ball club? Does that bother you?
Well, it's not really.
Base hit for Orsulak. Kelly over to cut it off, and he'll hold him at first with 1 out. Go ahead, Nick.
It's not really great to read about everything like that, but you know, Mr. Steinbrenner, he wants to win so bad, I think, that he doesn't really realize what kind of a feeling, and maybe he don't care, I don't know, but I don't think he really realizes what kind of a feeling these people have, you know. I mean, I hear a lot of people say, you know, I used to like the Yankees, and now I don't. And, but I think if they start winning again, which he wants to do, they'll be back out here.
But can they win again, Tony? The way this operation is run now.
Well, you've got to have some kind of continuity. I mean, through your farm system, and have a manager who can develop his own thoughts and his coaching staff. And when you keep changing like this, and it's Bucky's turn now, I don't know if it'll be Billy again. Who does know? But the players like to have a little more stability, I think.
Moreland drives one to deep left. Might get out of the yard. Nope, up against the fence. Orsulak on his way to third, stopped there. And Moreland chugs into second with a bullet of a double. And we took about half a second to get off the padding down the left field line.
We talked earlier why Moreland is playing a right-handed hitter against Terrell, a right-handed pitcher, rather than Sheets. And Moreland said, I do believe that Frank Robinson used the old Earl Weaver system looking at the cards and the matchups. And Moreland has hit Terrell very well over his career. A lot of extra base hits. He gets another one now. And ironically, Moreland and Terrell were traded for each other. The ball was hit so hard, it hooked Mick, and it also just started diving. He hit it very hard, and it looked like it was going to go out, and just hooked right into the fence and sunk.
I mean, all he had to do is get that one up, and it's gone.
Do you remember the one you got up to right field off Billy Fisher here?
Yeah, the facade's not the same place. You know, a lot of people come out here now, and they look up that right field light tower there, and they think, how did you ever hit that light tower? And it's not that, it wasn't that far then. It used to hang out over the upper deck, remember?
Yeah, about 5 feet. That's all. 5 feet difference is all it was.
You're the only guy who ever hit it, and you hit it twice, coming as close as anybody to hitting one completely out of Yankee Stadium. 2-0 the count to Traber. Hewlett on deck. Fastball high, 3-0. The Orioles lead 1-0 as they bat here in the third. Runners at second and third and 1 out. They have 6 hits already off Terrell. They left the bases loaded in the second. They got their run in the first. Now they're loaded again. Second time Traber is walked.
With first base open and 1 out, I'm not so sure he went any part of letting Traber beat him from the left side, and he's going to go to the right-handed hitter Hewlett now, where he maybe has a chance for a double play or pop him out. Well, I think a veteran pitcher like Terrell was pitching very carefully with that base open. Easier play, of course, at a home plate if it goes to Mattingly or Newlands at third, as they got earlier on in this game.
Bucky Dent's surrounded by former managers. Gene Michael to his right has managed this club a couple of times. Lou Piniella upstairs. Mike Ferraro in the glasses to the left, former Cleveland manager. Hewlett takes a strike. As the story goes, Piniella apparently declined an invitation. come down from the broadcast booth and manage the rest of this year. Here's the 0-1 pitch. And he's quickly ahead of him 0-2. Declining an invitation to manage for George Steinbrenner, I guess, is a little bit like passing on an opportunity to be Leona Helmsley's valet. Kind of a thankless task, no matter how you look at it. I said to Bucky, with all the Hall of Famers here, why don't you ask Joe DiMaggio how long Joe McCarthy managed here, or ask Mickey how long Casey lasted?
Well, they have 6 managers before George came. He's got 17.
Bases loaded here in the 3rd. You saw where Guerin set up. They wanted to get Hewlett to go after a pitch, and he wouldn't bite. Terrell working at something less than a brisk pace here. From the stretch. Got in on him, but he fights it off.
Good thing he did fight it off. That ball's going to hit him right in the thigh, it looked like, the way it came into him.
You know, Tony, talking about what you just said, somebody asked me a while ago, what was Del Webb and Dan Topping like compared to Steinbrenner? I said, well, the only time we ever saw Del Webb and Dan Topping is when they fined us or at victory dinners.
You saw him a lot more than I did then. You and Billy and Whitey.
Here comes the 1-2. Bouncing ball. Mullins can't get it. A run is home. Ripken waving Moreland toward the plate. And he is in there. He hooks around Guerin's tag and swipes the plate with his right hand.
Larry Barnett had a very unusual angle on that. For some reason, I don't know, I guess he must have thought it was the best angle, but he was about 12 feet away with his back to third base down the line. And I guess that's the angle he felt he could best see any kind of sweep tag, and the runner tries to slide away from the tag. Mullins playing in, of course, to go home and then back to first base as he did early on.
This is kind of bold because Moreland is one of the slowest runners in the majors. There's only one out. Here comes Hall's throw. Guerin's got the plate blocked on one side. Moreland goes around him toward the pitcher's mound, and it's a good call by Barnett.
He had a good angle. He jockeyed in position. Usually it's very easy on a ball hit like that, a ground ball to the left side, to score the ball at the left field. Hall doesn't have a great throwing arm, and it's so spacious. But you're right, Moreland, even though he cut the bags, he is such a slow runner. And he gets thrown out.
I'll tell you what, that was a great slide.
Wasn't it?
I thought he was safe.
Yeah.
The O's lead 3-0. A ball down and into Quirk. You know, speaking of the old Yankees getting fined, I heard that Del Webb and Dan Topping were a little bit concerned once about some of the night owl activities of Mickey and Whitey and Billy Martin and some of the others. So they hired a private detective to follow these guys around town, and they couldn't turn up any evidence, much to the dismay of the Yankee executives. And finally, one day, these detectives were totally bored, and they decided that they would follow Tony Kubek and Bobby Richardson, those old
Detroit
Yankee roommates.
That was Detroit.
There's the Candyman getting ready as Terrell is on the verge of being knocked out here in the 3rd.
I remember that. Tony and Bobby went to church, and they thought.
But as I heard it, the detective gives the report to Webb, and he says, look, I followed them. They went to the YMCA on an off day, and they played ping pong.
It was
1-2
at church, too, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, you were with us.
Then they came, Then they came out, and I thought, well, maybe they'll get in some trouble now after the ping pong. And they wind up going to a malt shop. And finally, the detective reveals himself to Bobby and Tony and says, you are the 2 most boring guys I have ever had to follow. So they bought a shake for the Seamus. 1-2. And you know, Mickey, he's no more fun now than he was then.
You look out your hotel window, and there by the lamppost would be a detective or 2 or 3 standing there waiting for guys to come out. Mickey and Whitey get out of one entrance, go around the block of the cab, and go in the other entrance and ditch the guy.
You guys were the decoy.
Yeah.
Bob, you know, when you call a pitcher sneaky quick, that means he's sneaky and fast. That was Tony.
You're probably right.
The Milkshake Twins, Richardson and Kubek.
You want to retract that like you did your line about Frank Robinson earlier?
On 2-2. Possible double play ball. Espinosa to Sachs. And they turn it. Sotero yields 2 in the third. It's 3-0 Baltimore, and we're coming back to a 3-0 lead. It'll be Hensley, Mullins, and then back to the top for Sachs and Espinosa.
The young Oriole pitchers seem to be thriving on that 4-man rotation. Talking to Al Jackson, he was saying that he started the theory way back when he took the job this winter in the instructional league and in spring training. You only think 3 pitches deep. He said, you never think about the 4th pitch. And he said he read that in the book that he read years ago. There's Al. A quote from Robin Roberts. You think on the 4th pitch, he said, and you're thinking about a base on balls. He said, so he taught all of his pitchers. And they're giving very few walks that after 3 pitches, within 3 pitches, you're on base or in the dugout.
Here's the 2-1. Slice foul. Johnson is used to scorn and to having to deal with those who doubt his ability. When he won his first big league game against Minnesota, Tom Kelly, who normally is not critical of opposing players, said, we were terrible. He really didn't have anything. We were just terrible. And Randy Bush said, I'm sure we'll never see this guy in the big leagues again. Thus far, he's proven them wrong. But you know, when you come into Baltimore for a series and they say you're going to go against Ballard, Malacky, and Johnson, I don't care where the Orioles are in the standings. That doesn't exactly cause big league hitters to squirm. You look at this 4-man rotation, including Pete Harnisch, they have a combined total of 193 strikeouts. Nolan Ryan has over 200 by himself. Ryan alone has more than the entire rotation for Baltimore.
That was Malacky keeping the charts.
Orsulak might not get to this one, and he doesn't. Mullins has a single. He broke up Jeff Ballard's bid for a shutout last night. His 2-out single in the 9th knocked Ballard out of the game. The Orioles settled for a 3-1 victory. Ballard almost had back-to-back shutouts. He had blanked the Brewers last Monday night, and this is indicative of the way he works, and it's sort of typical of the whole staff. He threw a complete game shutout against Milwaukee, didn't walk anybody, didn't strike anybody out.
When the pitching staff was struggling early on, they had a few injuries, but they were really pitching poorly. Frank Robinson, Al Jackson used the old Johnny Sain trick. They used 3 guys out of the bullpen, pitched 3 innings each, and they ended up beating Detroit. Brian Holton, Schmitten, and Thurman.
Sachs bunts. They let it go, and it's foul. Sachs trying to add to an average, which was 324 as the day began.
He's got the third baseman up but off the line. And many times with a bunt threat, the third baseman will play more on the line to get a better angle on his throw. And Sachs saw him that far off the line. He said, I can beat this out.
Sachs seems certain to hit 300 for the second time in his career. He hit 332 for the Dodgers in his best season to date in 1986. Narrowly missed the batting title. It went to Tim Raines of the Expos at 334.
Every once in a while, the throwing problem crops up, but Don Mattingly did it yesterday. He saved him 2 errors on throws, so Sachs has become so much more confident throwing to his first baseman. Brings Hewlett even closer now at third base. Mike Frauer, the first base coach, was the advanced scout until Massacre hit and Dallas Green and the staff. They brought him in to coach first, and so Ferraro knew all the release times of every catcher in the league and the release times of the pitchers. In the event they would like to steal. 3-0, though, that's tough to do.
Here's a drive inside third, possible extra bases. Mullins heads for third. Sachs is going to have a double.
Isn't it interesting how one bunt goes foul, one deep fly of a bunt, the third baseman becomes even more shallow, and sometimes balls like that might have been caught if he's playing normal depth, but because of the threat of the bunt, he can't come close to it.
So in a gloomy season, could be their worst in 22 years, and the first time they finished under 500 almost surely since they were 79 and 83 in 1982. Steve Sachs remains a consistent bright spot.
And Mattingly, you know what you're going to get from him. Kelly's been a tremendous surprise doing what he's doing defensively and offensively. Guerin has come along, and Barfield, he's a guy they'd like to sign because he's providing some punch. But they've got to get their pitching staff straightened out, the Yankees.
Espinosa flied to right his first time. This one is caught at second base. No, drop by Gonzalez. The runners will hold, and they still get the out. So no error, no advance.
You know, the funny part, now I don't know if Gonzalez could hear Cal Ripken, but off second base, Sachs thought the ball was going through, and he was about halfway between second and third. Watch him. And I just wonder, with Cal Ripken behind him, probably yelling, and he maybe tried to turn too soon and took his head off it, that he was going to try for the double play. But it's a moot play because he still gets the runner. But unfortunate, there wasn't much speed out of the batter's box in there.
Johnson got Mattingly to fly to left, his only at-bat. Breaking ball for ball one. This is the first time Jamie Quirk has caught Dave Johnson. Bob Melvin was the receiver for Johnson's first 5 starts. But Quirk and Johnson had a long talk before the game. And as they explained it to me, it was Johnson's intention to explain to Quirk what his philosophy of pitching is, what he considers to be his strengths and weaknesses. But once Quirk, who is a well-traveled veteran, had digested that information, then Johnson felt confident in having Quirk call the game and thought he'd be very unlikely to shake him off more than 2 or 3 times in the entire game.
Well, not being a power pitcher, Quirk probably found out that Johnson pitched a little backwards. There's a lot of breaking stuff behind the count. Tries to zip the fastball like that and surprise hitters inside in Yankee Stadium. A hitter who can pull the ball like Mattingly, who at this point represents the tying run. So he's pitching a little different and almost backwards, and he wants Quirk to know that he will do that.
Mattingly just missed what could have been a game-tying home run. Would have been a 3-run shot in the 8th off Ballard last night. It just hooked around the foul pole. Here's a drive headed in the same direction, but this one's foul as well.
That has always been an outstanding pitch in this ballpark. Just ask Yogi or Roger Maris the year that he hit the left-handed hitter who's trying to pull the ball. They want something inside part of the plate. But if you're smart enough, like he was in 2 pitches in the sequence, come inside off the plate. The left-handed hitter's done 1 of 2 things when he's trying to pull the ball. He jams himself, pops it up, or he hooks it foul. It's a long strike.
Just after Mattingly hooked that one foul last night, Ballard struck him out for the 3rd time to end the threat. 3-1.
I would be very surprised if Baltimore beats Toronto out for the Eastern Division with the way Toronto's playing. And they've played awfully well, and the fans have a right to be proud of them. But boy, they just show signs every so often of starting to flounder.
Mattingly bounces it to second. A run will score. Gonzalez having a terrible inning. This time it cost him. First time he got away with it. This time put E4 in the scorebook.
Will be an RBI, though, because he was playing back, and they were conceding the run.
You think about the Orioles' second base history, and Ripken is plenty good there now, Billy Ripken, but on the DL with a sore shoulder. But think about the people who preceded Ripken as the regular second baseman in Baltimore. Jerry Adair, Bobby Grich, Rich Dower, all of them at one time or another in their careers had extended errorless streaks. I'm talking about 70, 80 games.
And the other Dave Johnson.
Yep. Still only 1 out, 1st and 3rd. And Hall is going to get the second run home with a first pitch sacrifice fly. Mattingly tags at first, but only to draw a throw from Jefferson. Sack sprints home.
And you can see why Sack sprinted hard all the way. There's no play, but if he jogs it and Mattingly for some reason decides to go and he's tagged out before the run crosses the plate, that run could be negated. Watch regular speed, and you just heard why he runs hard all the way. Seen it twice this season where runs have been negated because the guy didn't come hard all the way off third, and there was a tag play on the bases for the third out.
So the Oriole lead is trimmed to 3-2. The second run, just scored by Sachs, is unearned. Phelps struck out his first time. Goes the opposite way. Bradley flips the shades and ends the Yankee third. They score a couple of runs on 2 hits, an error, and a sacrifice fly. 3-2 after 3. Slow and away. That error he made in the last inning was the first the Orioles have committed in their last 7 games. Defense was largely responsible for their fast start. Espinosa, easy hop at shortstop, and he takes care of Gonzalez. They allowed, believe it or not, only 6 unearned runs in their first 66 games. Then, when they had the long stretch of mediocrity, followed by a 16-game stretch that was simply atrocious on that road trip when they won only twice, then they were on a pace making about an error a game. Since then, up until Gonzalez's shaky half inning, they've been playing very well defensively as they've returned to form overall. Bradley swings and misses.
They still have the fewest error total in the American League, but that segment you talked about earlier, they're on a pace to eclipse the Minnesota Twins record. Fewest errors. Then they had an atrocious streak for about 25 or 6 games. That's one thing that has surprised me about Frank Robinson. Of course, he was a great defensive player. Runner, thrower, and sure hands. But being the great hitter, you'd think he'd focus more on offense. But this team, the Orioles, probably overstack their defenses and move around more than any other team I've seen in baseball. I've seen a lot more in the National League because of all the artificial surfaces in the bigger ballparks.
Mullens charges. Guns Bradley down. So Terrell a hitter away from notching his first perfect inning. They scored 3 against him and stranded 5, including leaving the bases loaded in the second.
Well, the Orioles had chances for big innings in the second and third, and Walt Terrell averted 4 or 5-run innings, and he kept himself in the ball game, and now they're back in it.
Jefferson's 1 for 2. A ball and a strike. Remember, not only did the Orioles have the infamous 0-21 start in 1988, they finished by dropping 17 of their last 20 in September. The shaky start cost Cal Ripken his job. They lost the first 6 or 7 for Cal and then continued the streak under Robinson. Jefferson's on. He's 2 for 3, a pair of singles. So it was out of that sea of despair that Roland Heeman and Frank Robinson yanked the Baltimore Orioles in 1989 from 54 and 107 to their present position in first place.
You might have seen before he went away from Johnny Oates and now on to Frank Robinson. I think a lot of his defensive maneuvers Frank did came from playing in the National League and having to learn that style of play, and he brought it over to this team. But Oates, you saw in his left hand, he had a stopwatch to time the pitcher's delivery time, and he whispered into Jefferson's ear, probably giving him the time from the first move of Terrell till it hits the glove of Guerin, and let him know what pitch they may send him on if they're sending him at all. With Cal struggling at the bat lately, They'd like to get him in scoring position. Perhaps we'll move him. I think they're going to start him in one early as they can in this count. A little quick pitch right there, Bob.
Ripken is singled and fly to center. So his dad was telling me before the game last night, the streak is now 12-18. But during that time, he has never so much as missed an infield practice before a game. He has never asked out of pregame drills.
Against Toronto, his dad finally sat him out in a couple of innings. So that part of the streak's going to be broken.
In the 1,218 consecutive games, counting this one, he has failed to play in only 26 innings. And 8 of those came in a game in which he was ejected in the first. So by his own choice, he's only missed 18 innings, the equivalent of 2 full games, in better than 1,200 straight played. Well, he's really applying the eye black in liberal doses, huh?
In this ballpark in the fall of the year, you do get some severe shadows, and it's a very bright day.
There goes the runner. It gets away from Guerin and apparently tipped back by Ripken. Jefferson returning to first, so Ripken got a little piece of it on the check swing.
And if Cal was swinging the bat better for power numbers, you probably wouldn't start him, because they may end up trying to pitch around him even with this score 3-2, because he can be such a dangerous hitter. That ball hit his bat.
Didn't look like it to me.
Sure did. Why they send him back? Looked like he was way over the top of the ball.
I don't know. That's a missed call by Larry Barnett.
It had a lot of downward action. It may have been the palm ball that went down, but there was really no argument. And Cal Ripken and the third, he'd had an argument. He didn't want to go on the whole 1 ball 2 strikes. So obviously it did catch a little part of the lower part of the bat. He must have just hit the top of the ball.
At second base, Sachs.
Whoa!
Wanted to toss it, but Espinosa was late in getting over to cover, so he has to go the long way to Mattingly. Steve can smile about it. No harm done. And we'll be right back. 2 runs on 3 hits for the Yanks. Barfield in the 4th, and that one rides up and in on him. Larry Barnett was right, and we were wrong on the pitch to Cal Ripken, and we'll take a look at it in just a minute. On another angle, you can clearly see the ball did tip the bat. Fastball for a strike. Watch the flight of the ball change as it brushes the bat ever so slightly. And Barnett was correct in his call, which is why Ripken didn't argue, obviously. Barfield with 21 home runs this year led the American League with an even 40 in 1986 for Toronto. His hands, Ripken retreats to the outfield grass.
Talking to Keith Moreland yesterday, we showed it earlier, the eye black that Cal Ripken has on because of the glare, and Keith was saying that even though the eye in center field, or batter's eye as it's called now, is painted black, he said that there's still a glare on it. It's like a flat paint, but it's very shiny. And he said, sure what Pete Rose did, how he thought about hitters. Pete put a little net to break up the glare on the hitter's eye in their ballpark, which helped. And then those shadows will come along. The farther fall goes along into September, and if there's ever postseason play here again, it is tough to hit here. Day baseball.
On a note to Roberto Kelly, who has endeared himself to his teammates by hitting .326 and playing splendid defense in center, but didn't win any friends with his own unique remedy for an injured wrist. He wrapped the wrist in a bandage with garlic inside of it. They gave him wide berth in the clubhouse. They almost traded him in April for Jeff Blauser. They were desperate for a shortstop. That was before Espinosa established himself, and a deal was cooking with Atlanta. Boy, are they glad they pulled back at the last minute.
I wonder if he got that remedy from his fellow countryman and Panamanian Hector Lopez. Still living in the Bronx area.
Throws one to left. Kelly was hit by a pitch his first time. Singles in his first official at-bat with one down here in the fourth. He's the tying run. And Guerin is the hitter.
And Roberto Kelly is second on the ball club in stolen base. He has 33, and he is really still learning how to read pitchers. Sachs has 38 to lead the ball club. So you've got a situation here with a slow-running catcher, Guerin up. One out, you got a lead. A young pitcher who throws a lot of off-speed stuff. The catcher not thrown for his arm. Would you say that we may see some action on the bases? I'd be surprised if we don't.
Johnson's pickoff moves so much better since he went to that Rick Russell, Bob Porsche style stretch taught to him by Dick Bosman. Johnson is in the process of calling people who have had an effect on his baseball life from his little league days through high school and the low minors, just to thank them for what he feels they've contributed, helping him persevere, and finally making it to the big leagues as a 29-year-old rookie. He called Dick Bosman the day before yesterday. Grew up rooting for the Orioles, and even though he wanted to be a pitcher, naturally, he went to the sporting goods store and bought a Davy Johnson model glove so he could have his own name as an 8-year-old on the glove. Remembers attending the 1971 World Series with his dad when the Orioles played the Pirates.
Kelly's now found that he's got about the extent of the lead he can get off Johnson. He's just barely making it back. From that angle, I think he'd like to see maybe one pitch home. He's seen the move, and there's Stick. He's timing the deliveries from that end of the field. Steve Boris, first I saw it on the coaching lines. He was coaching first base for the Montreal ball club. Went over to Oakland and did some help over there. Ricky Henderson and some of the base stealers. And Lou Brock had some people, Reggie Smith with the Cardinals. They used to do it from the bench even before that. Time the pitcher's delivery and then the catcher's too.
Look out. Well, they've got him, and Traber saved him an error by digging out the low throw. And Kelly is tagged from behind by Ripken.
If Kelly could have reversed his field, another man who was in the ballpark yesterday used to do it so well. He could have reversed his field, although Traber kept him going at a good speed and just turned around. He could have run into Traber and got an obstruction call and gotten out of it, but Traber just ran him too fast and he couldn't turn.
Because he made his move towards second rather than back to first, it's technically a caught stealing, 1-3-6.
Right there, if he could have turned and ran into Traber and Traber released the ball, he would have been awarded second base. Traber threw the ball and ran around to the right, and Kelly circled back to his left. He was obviously gone. He had all but taken the crossover step left over right and was getting in position to do so right there. There was a little contact, but not enough to slow him down, or the umpires would call it.
He twists Guerin around for strike one. So, if Dick Bosman, former big league pitcher, one-time White Sox pitching coach, now a minor league instructor, if he's watching, he's got to be pleased by the improvement that Dave Johnson, his pupil, has made in holding runners on.
And Dick Bosman's stuff was about like his. Wasn't overpowering. Change-up, sinker ball, slider, curve. Pitched that no-hitter one year. Similar styles of pitching. Not an overpowering pitcher.
Kirby Puckett, who faced him in collegiate baseball and then in the major leagues when Johnson notched his first big league win against the Twins, described him as a right-handed Tommy John. Do you think that's apt? I think he throws harder than John, at least in recent years when Puckett would have faced Tommy.
Well, his ball doesn't sink like Tommy John's. The breaking ball doesn't keep breaking like Tommy John, because that's why Tommy pitched about 24 years.
So Kirby's searching for a parallel. Might have missed the bullseye with that one. Puckett hasn't missed too much else. Leading Wade Boggs by 3 points in the batting race at this late stage. Boggs going for his 6th in 7 years. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Neither pitcher, Terrell or Johnson, have very fast rhythm between pitches, do they? They seem to want to take time and shake off pitches.
That one comes up on the third baseman, and Guerin is going to be aboard. Let's see how they score it.
Well, Worthington has scored a base hit. Worthington has a very sure glove and a good throwing arm, and he was part of the responsibility for their low run error total early on. He's got the sore left shoulder, not expected to play in this series. And Billy Ripken at second base doesn't make a lot of errors and is very aggressive. So the Hewlett down there, for a while, they looked like around that pace. And the record, as we talked about earlier, American League, 84 by the Twins in the American League. And 88, National League is 95 by Cincinnati, 162-game schedule, of course.
Newlands sending Jefferson back to the track, and Jefferson with an over-the-shoulder catch, a stride from the fence. So, while the defense has been shaky by Hewlett and Gonzalez, Jefferson bailed Johnson out there.
He made that a lot more difficult than it should be, which he's so inconsistent with that great speed. But these are catches that obviously are legitimate, compiled over the course of the early part of the season.
That's Devereaux taking a home run away. Billy Ripken at second base. So they've made 72 errors as a team. That's the lowest total in the majors. They'd have to play even better defense than they played to this point in order to come in under the Twins total of a few years ago.
No question, that's been the single biggest improvement on this ball club. The young pitchers they weren't sure of, but the defense, which was Frank Robinson's focus at the end of last year in all spring training.
Two and one the count to Orsulak. He leads off in the fifth, followed by Moreland and Traber. Here's a blast, deep right center field. Barfield looks up, goodbye. So Orsulak in the cleanup spot with Tettleton on the disabled list, launches his fifth homer of the year and increases the lead to 4-2.
And perhaps one of the most surprised men in the ballpark is the man who ran the Pittsburgh franchise, Sid Thrift, responsible for making a lot of deals, helping that franchise improve last year. And Sid sees Orsulak now, who used to be a member of that organization, the Pirates, and says, I just can't believe the tremendous improvement he's made. Because basically he's always had running speed, not a whole lot of power. He's good throwing arm. He's a right fielder's throwing arm. I never thought he played this consistently over the long haul. He's been very important.
Moreland is grounded out and doubled, narrowly missed a home run on his two-bagger off the fence in left.
One of the things Rollie Eman was looking at when he went after Moreland was his late season record. And when you look at Moreland with the Cubs especially, they won the Eastern Division, and he really is a good second-half hitter. Last year wasn't quite as good as in years past. But you want a guy like this who can come off the bench. You can DH him against left-handers. He can play first base for you. Who's had the kind of pennant experience he has, and that's what Toronto's got. They've got a lot of experience also, which is going to make them really tough in September.
Here's the 1-2 pitch. In on him, almost clipped him. Boy, Terrell got that pitch out over the plate about belt high to Orsulak. Joe could extend his arms, and he was just all over that pitch. Opposite way, Moreland with a base hit. He's always been able to take the outside pitch to right field. And although he's had a few seasons where he hit 20 home runs or better, he doesn't have the kind of home run totals that when you first look at him, you'd think he'd have. He had 1 year over 100 RBIs. That was 1985 for the Cubs. But he's always been a situation kind of hitter and a better bat handler than you'd think at first glance.
What he's been is a good two-out hitter with men in scoring position late in the ball game. It's hard to find guys like that who do that consistently, and he does it because he'll look for pitches and go the opposite way and not try to overpower. So he'll hit some good pitches, breaking balls away off good pitchers when it counts.
Mattingly holding him at first. Candelaria up and throwing again in the Yankee pen. Traber has walked twice. The only 2 walks issued by Terrell. Outside, ball 1.
It's interesting, and I know there are no outs, but with a left-hander up who can pull the ball, if a guy who doesn't throw very hard, I often wonder why they hold a man who has no speed out at first base, more in this case. If he goes, you still got a chance to throw him out at second base because he doesn't run, but Mattingly's holding him on, leaving that gap open. My pet peeves, not necessarily saying I'm right, but I always wonder about this. If you're strong like Traber, you got a short porch, and you want to try and shoot the ball through the right side, if at all possible, create a first and third. Of course, Terrell's trying to deny him from doing that. Look at the gap to Mattingly's right.
The change didn't get the plate, says Larry Barnett. Now Traber glancing down at Cal Ripken Sr. A run home on Orsulak's booming home run to right center. And Moreland at first with nobody out in the 5th. 4-2 Baltimore. They have 10 hits, double the Yankee total. There goes the runner, and it's fouled back.
That's Frankie gets the pitcher in the hole, not a strikeout pitcher, Terrell. And what that does, even though it was fouled off and the play was not executed so the way you wanted it to, it still gets your middle infielders, when they know there's a threat of running, even though there's not much speed at the plate or on the bases for the lumbering Moreland, your middle infielders sometimes crowd closer to the bag. So he's going to take the throw, and when you crowd closer to the bag, you leave the gaps to your right and left respectively.
Got it. Inside corner. And Traber with a few choice words for Larry Barnett as he takes his seat.
Something that started and looked 6-8 inches inside and came back. And fooled Traber. It's right where Guerin is setting up, inside part of the plate. He took a little off, and a little sinker ball, and came back over the inside corner.
So as Barnett punches Traber out here, we remind you that we'll present our State Farm Rules of the Game feature with a National League arbiter, Doug Harvey, doing the honors during the 7th inning stretch timeout. The home run by Joe Orsulak to open this inning was the first home run by a Baltimore cleanup hitter since Mickey Tettleton went out on the 5th of August. The third baseman, Hewlett. The Orioles without 3 key components in their starting lineup. Craig Worthington not on the DL, but with the injured shoulder. He has the highest RBI total of any rookie in the major leagues. He's over 60. Billy Ripken on the DL, also with a shoulder injury, and Gonzalez playing for him. And Melvin and Quirk sharing the catching duties with Tettleton out.
Now, when you tell me all these things, and the cleanup and everything else, how are they doing it? Is it just completely taking advantage of a division that's gotten so weak, or just a combination of players and playing well when they need it? I mean, it's a combination of both those things, I guess.
The division's certainly part of it. But think of the last 2 world champions.
Oh, yeah.
The Twins of 1987, who won only 85 games and had an abysmal road record. The Dodgers, who were overmatched in the playoffs by the Mets and in the World Series by the A's. Who's to say it can't happen? Whatever team wins the West will be a substantial favorite over the Eastern champion in the LCS. But ask the Mets and the A's, the Cardinals of '85 in the World Series against Kansas City, what can happen to a favorite in an abbreviated series?
All of a sudden, the Western Division American League is not just Oakland, California. Kansas City, 3.5 back, they are on a roll. 10 of their last 11. Good job Tom Gordon's done since going in the starting rotation. Ooh.
This will be a 3-1 pitch to Hewlett from Terrell. Hit the third. Mullens has it. Goes to Sachs, and it's off his glove. Everybody's safe. He tried to stay on the bag. Had he moved out to take the throw, the result would have been the same. Fielder's choice, error 5. He could have caught the ball, but then he would have come off the bag to do it, and there would have been runners at first and second anyway.
And probably an inexperienced mistake. He got an in-between hop, but he really didn't have to hurry it as much as he did. Once he didn't get a grip, he should have just said, and again, he hadn't played that much. Bam Bam Mullins said, well, let me just take the lead runner, forget the double play, but he hurried his throw. You've just got to hope that a guy like Mullins, of course, he's so smart. Speaks 5 languages, very intelligent. They don't think that his intelligence will get him ruined here. But in the Bronx, they were starting to boo him mildly yesterday. And they can damage your psyche in this town very quickly.
Jamie Quirk takes strike 1. Single. Get into a double play. Eight hits in 50 at-bats. Computing to 160. Has a home run. Two on, one out. Slow bounder toward Mattingly. Tricky hop, but he has it. Makes the unassisted putout as the runners move up.
You get the feeling in talking to Mattingly and pre-game practice yesterday and today that even though he won't verbalize it, he's upset with the situation around here. I mean, you can almost see it wearing him down before Dallas Green left. Dallas Green kept saying through the media the players stink this and that. And Don apparently had a heart-to-heart talk with Green and then with Mr. Steinbrenner. But he just seems to be upset with the conditions, what's happening around here.
Well, Green's style has always been to be bluntly honest. And Steinbrenner's style has been to speak out and be critical of his players in the press. So the combination of the two probably wore a lot of people in that clubhouse down. Things have not gotten any better in terms of the one-loss record under Bucky Dent, who becomes the manager at age 37 after 5 years as a minor league manager in the Yankee system. Dave Stieb at it again. No hits for Milwaukee through 5 and a 2-0 Blue Jay lead. Steve knows by now not to get too excited too early. 3 times he's been within an out of a no-hitter. Still hasn't gotten one. Swing and a miss by Gonzalez, 0-2.
Against these Yankees, 8 2/3 inning, perfect game until Roberto Kelly got the base hit to left.
Moreland at third, Hewlett at second, and the 0-2 pitch to Gonzalez. Fastball high. If Gonzalez doesn't get somebody home here, the Orioles will have left 8 through 5 innings.
Well, they're 12th in the American League in team batting average, but they're 4th in runs scored, so they have really hit when it counts and moved runners when it counts, but not this time again, Bob.
2 strikeouts in the inning for Terrell, but the big damage was done by the leadoff man. Here's Orsulak sending one out of sight. 4-2 Bird. The Orioles go to the playoffs or the World Series. The network television crews will be out at that trailer park filming features in the mobile home of Dave Johnson. He'll become a household name. What a story it's been. They send him off to work each day from that trailer park with banners and a reception committee to meet him there when he comes back after notching another victory. 150, 200 people on his pass list at Oriole home games. A volunteer fireman in the offseason at the Middle River, Maryland Fire Department. He hasn't had the call on the Oriole fireman that often, though. He's gone the distance in 3 of his last 4 starts, so Greg Olson and company have usually had a day off when Frank Robinson has handed Dave Johnson the ball. Top of the order in the bottom of the 5th. Sachs, Espinosa, and Mattingly. Look out! Sachs glaring out at Johnson. And it's Johnson's rep that he does try to establish the fastball inside. He doesn't have an overpowering fastball, but he will work inside on right-handed hitters. Probably what he was trying to do here as this got away from him.
He's a breaking ball pitcher, and you can see Sachs is actually moving in, trying to take away the outside part of the plate. I'm not saying he's trying to hit him, but he sure is trying to move him off the plate on that 1-1 pitch. Sachs, coming from the last National League, is perhaps a little more used to that, where I think they do a little more of that because they throw more fastballs.
Reel it in close at third. To the right side, Gonzalez. It comes up for him. And Sachs is done. Steve is 1 for 3. We're told that at the Sky Dome, Robin Yount of the Brewers got an infield hit in the top of the 6th. So that's a relatively quick end to Dave Steve's latest flirtation with a no-hitter. 2 of the guys who broke his heart 1 out away are in this ballpark today. Roberto Kelly had the double a month or so ago at the Sky Dome. 1 out from a perfect game. And Jim Traber at first base today for the Orioles got the 2-out hit in the 9th inning last year. The first of 2 consecutive starts, or actually the second of the 2, where Steve Johnson has the comebacker. Espinosa tosses his bat aside in disgust. Remarkably, back-to-back starts in September of 1988. Steve went 8 2/3 each time. One time, Julio Franco, then playing for Cleveland, got a bad hop single over Manny Lee with 2 out in the 9th. And then the second time, Traber was jammed, hit one off his fist, and just flared it over the first baseman's head for a little bloop hit. At least the Roberto Kelly double, which broke up the perfect game bid this year, was a clean base hit. A strike on the outside corner to Mattingly.
Some people are already talking as if it's a 2-team race, and of course there's some mathematical possibilities yet for Milwaukee and even Boston and Cleveland, but it could be Baltimore and Toronto, and they're saying, hey, it's going to go to the last 3 games up in the Sky Dome. That's where Baltimore finishes their season, in Toronto. And Baltimore, to this point in the season, not been a great artificial surface team. They're 9 wins and 12 losses. Don't know if that means anything or if it'll come about in those last 3 games.
Mattingly spanks one to center, but Jefferson almost in his tracks, and Johnson makes quick work of the Yankees in the last of the 5th. It remains 4-2 Baltimore. Jackson confer, and Jackson was motioning toward Johnson. Get on top of the ball. Don't let that arm drop. There you go. Johnson told me before the game that as close as he's ever come to packing it in, as Bradley leads off here in the 6th, during his long and uncertain minor league career, came in 1985, Double-A ball at Nashua, New Hampshire, and he was struggling. His ERA was over 6. The Bat Boy videotaped one of his starts and came to him and said, look at your arm angle. You're dropping down 3/4 when you want to get on top of the ball. Johnson said he was amazed that the manager didn't pick it up. Pitching coach didn't. You don't have the sophisticated techniques at Double-A ball where every game is videotaped the way it would be at the major league level. The Bat Boy straightened him out. Had a winning record the rest of the year. 1-2 to Bradley.
Well, how many times do you see a pitcher who's starting in a game, doesn't matter which league, who they stay in the clubhouse, hide in their cubby hole, they're in their own world, and here's the kid's out there shagging balls, talking to everybody in sight, doing interviews the day he's pitching. He's, to say the least, is happy to be here, a 29-year-old rookie. He said, I'm going to enjoy every minute. And he's very outgoing, walked around left center field, saw the monuments, saw the plaques.
It finally worked.
Is that a Johnny Sane?
You see, there's a fishing term, and you're not exactly talking to Marlon Perkins here. I'm not what you'd call your big outdoorsman.
You know, like S-E-I-N-E, a net?
Yeah.
A seine.
It's an expression that's outside my expertise.
But I got to explain it, you're in bad trouble.
Bradley fouls the 2-2 pitch off. You know, growing up in Bayside and on Long Island, we didn't spend much time out in the duck blind wearing those camouflage suits.
With you in the booth, I'm going to put my hip boots on shortly.
It does get thick sometimes. Got him swinging. And a weak wave at that for Phil Bradley.
I would say we talked about Cal Ripken being a big part of the inner defense, and it shifts around him. You talk about the outfield defense. Usually it revolves around the center fielder, but not when Bradley's playing. And you got a Devereaux out there, Brady Anderson earlier, now Jefferson. All inexperienced, they take it from him, so his defensive and base running contributions, Phil Bradley's been very important.
4th strikeout now for Terrell. He's walked a couple. He misses high and away to Jefferson. who has a pair of singles and 3 trips. We're in the top of the 6th. The Orioles trying to make it 3 out of 4 in this series. Lead 4-2. Mulin's in close at 3rd. Strike 1 call. Bouncing ball, foul. You look at Mulin's down at 3rd, and you mentioned he's been rushed up from Columbus. There's no question he's a very bright prospect. They've been very disappointed by the kind of production they've gotten at 3rd base. Talierullo fell well off his 30 home run form. They dealt him to San Diego in the trade that brought Walt Terrell here. And Wayne Tollison has been in and out of that spot. Tom Brookins presently on the DL with a rib cage injury. He hasn't produced consistently the way they might have hoped. So it's been a big void there.
Well, one of the histories of this franchise, maybe it's not in recent years, has been never to rush players. They can stick it out and have a good year AAA ball, but they brought Deion Sanders up earlier. A lot of people still not sure he's a prospect at all, even though with his great talent. Mulin's up too soon. Well, now pitcher Leana that came up with A or AA ball, but injuries and the team struggling, so they haven't only had a Columbus to New York shuttle bus, it's gone into A and AA ball at times.
Bam Bam Mullins.
Will he be a 3rd baseman? Some people feel they ought to move him to the outfield and start him out in that area.
A strike to Ripken. Terrell has now struck out 5 overall, but he's fanned 4 of the last 6 hitters he's faced. Ripken has singled, flied out, grounded out. Cal began the day at 268, 17 homers, 77 RBIs. Rookie of the year in '82, MVP the next year as the Birds won it all. Fastball inside. He has not missed a game since May of his rookie season, 1982. And think about that. It isn't just avoiding injuries. Psychologically, here's a guy who went out every day, an established all-star veteran player, never begged off with a woeful team. Ripped foul. A team that went 54 and 107. There are a lot of guys who would find a Wednesday afternoon against Dave Stieb in Toronto, day game after a night game, and might have an upset stomach. Or one night at Fenway against Roger Clemens, they might decide that the pain in the shoulder was just a bit too much. He went out every time in meaningful and meaningless games over the course of this streak.
And what does he have to do? Go about 6+ years without missing a game? Gets the Iron Horse.
It's the curveball towards Sachs. Nice backhanded play, and he throws him out. That's the first time Terrell has sent the side down in order. Ball settles into the box. Last half of the 6th, Mella's doubled and hit a sacrifice fly. Spanks one to right. Leadoff hit. 6th safety off Johnson.
Maybe that's why these pitchers are pitching so methodically. They're waiting for the shadow to creep across to make hitting a lot tougher. Not very logical, but they have both not necessarily thrown a lot of pitches, and they are both nibblers that neither one can say, here it is, hit it, even in this bigger ballpark. But
another of your bizarre theories.
It's not bizarre. I said it with tongue-in-cheek, and you fell for it. Hook, line, and whatever.
Now, don't use any more of these fishing terms on me. Phelps, the hitter, struck out, fly to left. Outside for a ball. Last year, Dave Johnson was 15 and 12 at Buffalo. He led the American Association in wins, starts, and complete games. He's been a bullpen saver during his month-long stint so far for Frank Robinson. Harmless fly ball, center field. That's the first out. Hall tags and heads for second. They're going to get him.
You betcha.
He's out. A bold play, down by 2. Here in the 6th, and Jefferson guns him down.
You're too kind saying bold.
Would you like me to amend it to foolish?
Well, you've got Barfield up, who's leading the club in home runs next. The man on first base, if he doesn't try it. And if Jesse got a hold of one, you could end up being in a tie ball game. So this is very foolish. Give him an A for a hustle, but not a whole lot of credit for intelligence. Pretty good play from very deep, near 400 feet by Stanley Jefferson.
And he's out 8-4. So Barfield bats with the bases empty and takes high.
Good thought, Mal, wrong situation.
In the air to right center field. Jefferson's going to track it down. Makes it look easy over the shoulder. And we'll be right back after these messages from your local station.
Teacher named Randy, who met this aspiring broadcaster named Bob, and then along came Keith Michael Kirby Costas, and just a couple of days ago, another little young lady in the family named Taylor. What a story.
Have a cigar.
A bubble. Congratulations. It's wonderful.
This is an L Bubble. This is an official bubblegum cigar. I thought you'd enjoy it.
You took it back. I didn't give it back.
Here's Orsulak, who homered earlier, makes a bid for another one, and it's foul.
So how are Randy and Taylor and Keith doing?
All good.
Good. Wonderful. Back in St. Louis?
Well, yeah, they're not going on any road trips yet. She was just born on Wednesday. 6 pounds, 8 ounces. Orsulak is having himself a day. Out of here for the second time. He has a sacrifice fly, a single, and a couple of home runs.
He wants to stay in this freedom spot. Ricky, tell him to eat your heart out. I'm not giving it back. Where'd the power come from now?
Sac fly to left in the first, sharp line single up the middle in the third, and long home runs in the fifth and here in the seventh, his fifth and sixth of the season.
Start looking at Orsulak's home run career. 121 games for Pittsburgh at 85, no home runs. 1986, 138 games for Pittsburgh, 2 home runs. Vancouver 1, Baltimore 3 last year. And it's a couple in one game in a pretty big ballpark. Lance McCullers in 41. Bucky makes a trip out, and Bucky's getting a few hoots. Give him a break, folks. He hasn't been around that long.
So as Orsulak puts another dent in Terrell, Bucky Dent finally goes to his bullpen. This is the 11th hit allowed by Terrell. He trails 5-2. It's the first multi-home run game of Orsulak's career. McCullers coming in. We're stepping aside. Long stretch on the DL. Leads Jeff Russell of Texas by a point. You pick up points for wins and for saves. And you have points taken away, obviously, for losses and blown saves. Left-hander Mark Davis of San Diego leads the National League, and right behind Thrill-A-Minute Mitch Williams, the wild thing from Chicago.
Lance McCullers, 4 wins, 3 losses. Over from the San Diego connection. Strikes out about 1 per inning, but that allows too many hits. He can be overpowering, and then all of a sudden it's all gone. The Yankees, under Billy Connors, their pitching coach, one of those retained along with John Stearns after Dallas Green was fired, along with a lot of good baseball minds. But they are taking a lot of people out of the bullpen, making them starters, like Catteray and Plunk are starting now. Andy Hawkins has been a starter recently, but he was in the bullpen for a dozen games or so in San Diego a couple years back. Carey, who's pitched well, was in the bullpen at times for Sparky Anderson and then for Atlanta. They're taking the best arms and trying to make them starting pitchers.
Moreland had a good game, a double and a single in 3 at-bats, but with the right-hander in, Larry Sheets replaces him. He'll stay in as the DH. Sheets hitting .240 with 7 homers, 30 RBIs. And the count is 2-0. A couple of years ago, Sheets went wild. In 1987, offense was up all over baseball. A lot of guys had their single-season home run highs, but nonetheless, he hit .316 with 31 homers and 94 runs driven home. He's never refound that touch. Pops this one up. Sachs will do it.
Well, you mentioned earlier, Joe Orsulak has been somewhat of an offensive star. A sacrifice fly single run scored in the 5th. He takes a fastball from Terrell, about belt high, up over the plate. Did that leading off the 5th, and then in the 7th, he leads off again. Similar pitch. It might have been a little slider that just spun and didn't break, but it was a similar area out over the plate. Belt high.
Ball 1 to Traber, who didn't put the ball in play against Terrell, walked twice and struck out. Terrell worked 6 innings, 11 hits, 5 runs, all of them earned, struck out 5, walked 2. In there, 1-1. We're in the top half of the 7th. The Orioles lead 5-2. At last check, the Blue Jays were beating the Brewers, so Baltimore will need a victory to stay a game and a half in front in a race that would appeal to the Audubon Society. You get the Orioles and the Blue Jays occupying the 2 top perches.
Ornithologically speaking.
Very nice. The 2-2. Full count.
Do you have Audubon's elephant photo album?
I can't say as I have that
Really?
much coveted item.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's just marvelous. Subscribe to the Audubon Society like I do, and perhaps they'll allow you to purchase this massive volume. The elephant folio. The plates of his original bird paintings.
What is it, a pachyderm portfolio? Elephant yearbook? There's another 3-2. And he walks him. 3 walks and a strikeout today for Traber. He's been in the rocking chair. Toronto has lengthened its lead in the 7th at the Sky Dome. The Brewers experiencing a terrible week, trailing 6-0 at Toronto.
And Toronto's bullpen, which was, to say the least, all but awful early in the season, all of a sudden David Wells is striking out 1 per inning pitched. Hanke has become the closer again. Dwayne Ward strikes out. I don't know what team in Major League Baseball has 3 pitchers out of the bullpen who are averaging more than a strikeout per inning pitched. Now the Goose is down there too. Moro Gazzo goes 3-0 starting.
Goose 2.
Goose 2. He's now in the bullpen.
Gene Michael in the foreground with Bucky Dent.
What's Bucky, 2-7 now since he took over?
Yep. Fastball, threw it by him. McCullers has always been able to throw hard.
Been no indication at this point that Mr. Steinbrenner will retain Bucky Dent for next year. But if you're going to rebuild, getting a young guy who had some of these people in the minor leagues, as Bucky's managed in Columbus a few years, it may be a good way to go.
The 2-7 after 9 games represents the same start for Dent as for Dallas Green. After the first 9 games of this year, they were 2-7. They won on opening night at Minnesota behind Tommy John, then dropped 7 of the next 8.
Well, so far it's not working, but it's a wise move to have Gene Michael and Mike Ferraro, 2 guys who were out advanced scouting. Gene, of course, was on the stick that's in right there, left, to help him as far as how to defense and position and pitch certain hitters. They can help him out that area.
Well, after setting it up with the heat, he goes to the curveball, and Hewlett was just frozen on it, takes the called 3rd strike. And we take this opportunity to tell you our telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball, may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. Jamie Quirk. Single, hit it to a double play, bounced to Mattingly unassisted. Doug Harvey with the rules of the game feature, waiting just around the corner, midway through this 7th inning.
See one of the Mets game yesterday? Hernandez.
A balk on an appeal play.
And the appeal play then was negated. Davey Johnson protests the game.
mentioned earlier that Jamie Quirk had 3 different tours of duty with the Kansas City Royals. He might have done the most good for that team while wearing an Indians uniform. Cleveland was just desperate for a warm body, and they purchased Quirk from Denver, then a White Sox farm, for $100 the last week of the '84 regular season. He had 1 at-bat for the Tribe and hit a home run off Minnesota's Ron Davis in the 9th inning to win a game against the Twins. And it was a crushing defeat for Minnesota. A couple of days later, they fell out of the race, and Kansas City clinched the division title.
You know, a few months ago in Kansas City, John Sherholz of the Royals, the general manager there, told me an interesting story. He said when Quirk left, he and George Brett were such good friends. Quirk, they roomed together and all else. He said, I'll probably go over there and hit a home run and help you guys win the pennant. Is he clairvoyant or what? You know, my quote of the week?
I can't wait.
Oh, this is true. It came out of St. Louis. Pick up the phone, a little voice comes out of the phone and says, Tony, I got a new baby sister. It has nothing to do with this game, but that's my quote of the week. And Keith got on the phone to, what, less than 4 years old? I said, well, thank you, Keith.
Just barely 3 and already tuning up for a broadcast job. By the time he's old enough, NBC will have the rights to Big League Baseball back, so he can just slide right into the scene.
You won't let that die, will you? Oh.
McCullers chasing Traber back. Orsulak opened the inning with a home run. He led off both the 5th and the 7th with long homers to right center. This one finally finished Terrell. Now it's McCullers. 3 balls and a strike. You know what he said to me the other day? He asked me a really tough question, put me on the spot. We were watching a baseball game, and he said, Dad, how come you're a sportscaster and not a baseball player? The real answer would have been too heartbreaking. I couldn't play.
Well, I've asked that question many times. The first part I've asked. The second part I understand. I saw you in a fantasy camp game in St. Louis with Bob Gibson.
Quirk trots down to first, Traber to second, and then he adds insult to injury by saying, was Tony Kubek a baseball player? And I had to admit, yes, he was.
Billy Connors, sitting back with a jacket on, who spends some time with, ironically, the Chicago Cubs under Jimmy Fry, and he got fired along with Fry and Zimmer by Dallas Green. Then he went to Seattle. Billy Connors helped some of the pitchers like Langston. Some people theorize, whether it's right or not, that Connors was left on as a pitching coach to help get Mark Langston when he becomes a free agent. And they thought the connection with Langston and Connors in Seattle, and Connors helped him so much that there might be some influence, Connors getting Langston here. I don't know how much truth.
A strike to Gonzalez. Well, let's face facts. Steinbrenner's team is in tatters right now. He can't put up with this much longer. He has $50 million a year in local television revenue, more than any other club, and he's got to unload some of it. So you figure even as out of whack as the salary structure around Major League Baseball may be right now, the boss here in the Bronx is prepared to bend it even further in pursuit of a Mark Langston or a Brett Saberhagen or a Mark Gubicza, among others. McCullers ahead of Gonzalez 0-2. Rene is 1 for 3. Guerin makes the stop.
Not easy to hit right now. McCullers really, and not that he's not trying to throw strikes, but there's no way that he should try and nibble with these conditions right now. Look at those. This stuff is good enough, and he doesn't trust it often enough. You throw the fastball 90 to get a snapping slider. He started for the middle of the plate and let it go, and it's not something he hasn't been told by a lot of pitching coaches.
And he strikes him out swinging. So it remains 5-2 as we move to the bottom of the 7th. Is that an Oriole? A bird of some kind, and the birds are flying high here as we bring you another edition of State Farm's Rules of the Game.
It's not a pattern. We've talked talked about Roberto Kelly's potential, and he's been hurt off and on the last couple of years, but he's got 50-plus stolen base speed, a good throwing arm. Don't know about in this park, but on the road he might hit a few home runs. I'm not talking about 25, but he might get you 12, 15. But that speed that you need, DiMaggio had and Mantle had, and others who tried to play, you need in this spacious outfield to go to left center field. We've seen it with Stanley Jefferson today going to right center field a couple of times today. It was just drifted back.
He's hit 6 out of the park so far this year.
Starting to gradually move him down in the lineup. That was one of the things Dallas Green had with Lou Piniella. And Piniella does some commentary here, and Piniella, apparently on the air, didn't like the idea of him, Kelly hitting down in the lineup. So he ought to be hitting maybe even second. Well, gradually Dent is moving him down to the 7th spot today. Dallas Green didn't feel it was Lou Piniella's right to second-guess him on the road. I don't believe that's second-guess at all. He was just giving his opinion like we all do up here. Picky, he thought. Touchy Dallas is what it was.
2-2.
When Dallas is outspoken as he is, to take offense to something that Piniella said.
Well, I guess the difference between Piniella and your average broadcaster is that Piniella is always considered a manager in waiting.
Well,
highly unlikely that you or I, even Steinbrenner, wouldn't walk in here and tap you or me to go on down there. Consequently, Dallas couldn't care less what we say.
Oh, he might you. Surely not me.
Yet another inspired choice. Curveball grounded foul.
You get away with a lot of bad pitches right now in these conditions. You can hang a curveball and the hitter can lose it. You don't have to pitch to spots because of that shadow hanging between home plate and the pitcher's mound.
And the 3-2.
There's a breaking ball that hung inside at the belt and it jammed it. I think there was a black blur.
You know, earlier we mentioned that Kirby Puckett had assessed Dave Johnson as a right-handed Tommy John, which may or may not have been an apt comparison. But the guy Johnson himself likes to be compared to is Doyle Alexander.
Well, he's a breaking ball pitcher who gets more hitters out with a fastball.
There's a walk, and it's the first he's yielded.
Doyle has been successful doing that over a great part of his career. Al Jackson now is going to get on the horn to the pen. Early on, you might have seen where Al Jackson and Quirk, and it was a good tape that Andy Rosenberg, our director, Ken Edmondson got during a commercial, and he was talking about staying on top of the ball to make the slider have a downward action and the sinker ball to sink. That last pitch was down almost flat, getting your sidearm, which is an indication maybe the numbers of pitches that Johnson's shoulder might be tiring, and he's dropping down. He can't get back on top, and as soon as he saw that last pitch flatten out and the delivery and the release point changed to almost sidearm, now he's on top.
Guerin gets on top of this. If it stays fair, it's on the screen attached to the foul pole, and the Yankees jump right back in it at 5-4. Jackson says, I knew it. I could see it coming.
They just wonder to give the pitchers in the pen more time to warm up if Frank Robinson wouldn't wish now that he didn't send Al Jackson out to stall for a little time.
First home run Oriole pitching has allowed in 9 games. They had gone 8 full games and into the 7th inning of another before Guerin put a charge into one. He knew it was gone in terms of distance, only question fair or foul, and it got the screen attached to the foul pole.
And that goes along with the philosophy that Al Jackson has preached from spring on. Don't pitch deep in the count. Replay of the ball staying fair by a matter of 8 inches or so. Now out comes Al Jackson. It's a very slow walk to let Mark Williamson get more time to throw. It's still too early for their closer, Greg Ost, with that great curveball and 90-mile-an-hour fastball, so he may need Williamson to come in and pick up an inning or so, and sometimes maybe even finish the game.
So the very first man that Johnson walked, Roberto Kelly, cost him big. And then perhaps mindful of that and not wanting to get in further trouble, he looks to get ahead of Guerin with a first pitch strike, grooves it, and boom. Going to leave him in.
Well, early on in the first few months, and Al Jackson was very aware of it, they had stretches where the starters weren't going very far. And some of their relievers had a big inning build-up earlier and a lot of appearances.
Breaking ball, skied to right by Munich. Orsulak has it lined up.
It's going to be interesting to see, Bob, if on this four-man rotation now, they are young arms, they don't have a big inning build-up, but what happened, they've done very well the first two times through. What's going to happen if they continue with this? And that isn't to say that Al Jackson and Frank Robbins are going to continue with it. Here's the home run pitch that he threw to Guerin. From this angle, he looks like he's over the top pretty much. Pitch, you like to get out over the plate to a right-hander. So he'll hit it to left center or dead center field. He got it inside where Guerin could jerk it.
Sacks. A strike on the outside edge. Grounded out twice and doubled. Both he and the man who he exchanged positions with made the All-Star team in their new leagues. Randolph selected as a reserve by Tommy Lasorda.
Willie's was a controversial one. There are some people thought it should have been Dart or others.
Or Robbie Thompson.
Robbie Thompson from San Francisco.
And Tony La Russa tapped Sachs as a reserve for the American League. Julio Franco voted the starter by the fans. Here's the 0-2. Got a piece of it. It's a ball game again in the last half of the seventh. You want 3 home runs. Orsulak 2 of them for the Orioles, and Guerin here in this inning for the Yanks.
You wonder if Al Jackson didn't go out, and surely speculative as we don't read lips or have a pipeline, but he didn't say, hey, look, hard at this stage of the game is not better. You're throwing hard and your fastball straightened out to Guerin. Take a little more off. Don't think you can overpower them at this stage of the game. You're better off getting more movement and changing speeds. He had his tough times with the Mets and spent some time with the Sox helping their pitching staff.
Hit down to Traber. It comes up for him. Unassisted putout.
You know, Al Jackson really didn't know why he got the pitcher's job, because there really is no close connection between him and Frank Robinson and him. The only thing he can feel is that it was Tommy McCraw, and Tommy McCraw had been with Frank down in San Francisco and other places, Cleveland, and he figured that his connection with Tommy McCraw, Al Jackson's, that Tommy recommended him, and when they had one conversation over the telephone and they exchanged ideas and pitching philosophy, Frank said, "You're my man. You're my new pitching coach."
Espinosa's 0 for 3. He hits one to deep left. Bradley goes back. Bradley to the fence for the catch. Right in front of the retired numbers arrayed there of former Yankee greats.
He got him out of the inning, but barely a lot of time.
Back live, he missed one pitch. Bradley took it for a strike from McCullers as we move to the 8th. 5-4 Baltimore. Bradley's 0 for 4, struck out his last time, and in an 0-2 hole here. Guerin took Dave Johnson deep, and then Espinosa, who hasn't homered all year, hit one to the wall to conclude the inning, and so Hickey is throwing in earnest in the bullpen. Got him swinging with a breaking ball.
Bob, 3.5 hours before game time, before Kevin Hickey even put his uniform on, Frank Robinson had his lineup on the door in the visitors' clubhouse. And Hickey went to the lineup, took his finger, rattled up and down the lineup, and said, aha. He said, Mattingly, Hall, and Phelps. Consecutive left-handers. I'm going to get them perhaps by the 7th or 8th inning, and they'll be my 3-man. And I said, he's going to pinch hit for one. And he said, well, then I'm going to get Slaughter Balboni for Phelps. And he's noted as a flaky guy, as a guy that Roland Heeman had in the White Sox, was all but retired out of baseball. He had a sensational first half, and Frank and Hickey thinking the same way. They're looking at Mattingly, Hall, and Phelps in the 8th, and then perhaps you go to Greg Olson, the closer, if he gets them out. So he's not flaky at all. He had a game plan some 5.5, 6 hours ago.
Jefferson pops one wide of third. Mullins for a look, but it's in the seats. Now McCullers ahead on this hitter, 0-2. He's struck out 3 of the last 4 he's faced. Just missed, 1-2. Puts it in play toward left center field. Mel Hall sprinting over and gets there.
It's not only a bad hitter's background in these conditions, but left field can get awfully tough. With a high stand and the sun glaring in your eyes.
The NBC Boxing Tour returns to Sports World tomorrow. Live action from Madison Square Garden's Felt Forum. Hard-hitting Buddy McGirt, former junior welterweight champ, moves up in class to take on the welterweight division when he battles British Commonwealth champion Gary Kid Jacobs. It's scheduled for 10 tomorrow on Sports World with Marv and the Fight Doctor.
Wasn't Marv doing a football game last night?
Indeed.
Of course, Gale subbed for him today for the pregame, so then he goes to boxing with the Fight Doctor.
Gotta be versatile.
Now, what are you guys going to do with all your money? Jumping from one venue to the other. Does Marv do basketball here, doesn't he? Nick?
Yeah.
Does he do hockey?
Rangers.
I can't tell. He's got so many relatives in the business. It's hard to pin him down. Greg Koskow there at first base. Appeal play.
Marv is ubiquitous, is he not?
Mm-hmm. He's all over him, aside from that.
Yeah. Ripken 1 for 4.
Not a very pleasant swing for Cal Ripken with that breaking ball of the sun into the shadows.
What was it like late afternoon when they used to play every World Series game in the afternoon to face Koufax here in Game 1 of the '63 series?
Well, you see the strikeout record you said? Try anybody, let alone a Koufax or a Drysdale or a Warren Spahn or anybody else, day baseball or the second game of a doubleheader. In this ballpark, he puts the second game of a doubleheader, day baseball with the shadows. Casey Stengel would say for Bob Turley for Game 2 or Don Larson. And Turley threw about 95 miles plus. And these swings are all disputed for Cal in these conditions.
A weak swing for Ripken. 4th strikeout for McCullers since he came in. Just as Hickey visualized in the clubhouse before the game, late inning situation, heart of the order, Mattingly, Hall, and Phelps, all left-handed batters, each a home run threat, especially in this park. And with Johnson having been rocked in the 7th, he's finished, and here comes Kevin Hickey.
And those little numbers circled behind their names so that they know when he is hitting the inning. What happened was Mattingly with a 1 after in the circle. He was the last hitter in the 1st. You see, he was also the last hitter in the 5th, and that's just how they keep track of them. So in case somebody does bat out of order, they've got it on that MasterCard right there, along with all the players left over down at the end. Different managers of different systems.
Dave Johnson pitched 7 innings, gave up 7 hits and 4 runs, 3 of them earned, and typical of the type of pitcher he is, he walked 1 and struck out only 1.
And when Raleigh Heyman invited Hickey to spring training, wasn't sure he was going to make the club, but he struck out Mattingly and Boggs and got some tough left-handed hitters out, and he ended up making the club and had one heck of a start.
First pitch to Donnie is a strike. Mattingly playing through persistent back problems, trying to hit over 300 for the 6th straight year. Started the day at 295. He's lost something off of that, 0 for 3. Mattingly won the batting title, hitting .343 in 1984. There you see the lifetime mark. His actual highest single season was 1986 when he hit .352, but still didn't win the batting title. He lost it to Boggs.
And of course, things get tougher for Mattingly now because he no longer has Ricky Henderson in front of him with all the steals and high on-base percentage, and Winfield gone behind him with all those 100 RBI years. And Winfield taking some of his numbers away, not being here.
2-1.
I don't know if we'll ever see a Mattingly have the kind of years he had in the past. I mean, they're just going to be able to pitch around him a lot more. I don't know who they're going to find to do what Henderson did and Winfield behind him.
The 2-1 pitch. Hit toward the hole. Gonzalez can't get it. The tying run is on to start the 8th.
Hickey, I believe, would like to have gotten that breaking ball the outer half of the plate. And you can see the first baseman playing on the line to take a double away, as was the third baseman in that situation, playing the percentage, which left more of a gap for Mattingly to hit through. And then when Hickey did not get the ball away, got the breaking ball in, Mattingly was able to pull it through that right side.
Each cleanup man has had a splendid day. Orsulak for Baltimore, sac fly, a single, and 2 home runs. Hall now for the Yanks hasn't done quite as well, but has a single, a double, and a sacrifice fly of his own.
That's what the thrower was for, not for Mattingly running, of course, but to see if Hall would tip off the play. Hewlett at third base is not playing in. He's playing behind the bag at third base. They wanted to see if the cleanup hitter, left-handed against left-handed pitcher, was going to try and sacrifice.
He squares, pulls back, takes a ball. You think Dave Johnson, the starter, is a story? How about Kevin Hickey? This is his first full year in the majors since 1983. All but given up for dead in a baseball sense. Last year, he was living in the clubhouse at Rochester. Just had a cot, and he slept in the clubhouse.
How about his first try with the White Sox? He was a softball pitcher in Comiskey Park area. Seeing if they switched off now and they're going to let Mel Hall hit instead of bunt again. An airplane on the field now. Well, there's a timeout now. And a nice glide path. Like Voyager 2 just went out of our solar system. Back so soon.
There it is, gliding into view. Landing gear down, very smooth. The 1-0, he'll look to bunt again and pulls away. 2 balls and no strikes.
Whoa, here comes Frank Robinson. He didn't like those 2 pitches so far inside in that situation.
Everybody has talked about how Robinson has mellowed as a manager. The edge is off a little bit and has made him a better skipper. And he acknowledges that. But he also says when people tell him he didn't communicate well, he has a funny answer about his 10 years in Cleveland and San Francisco. He says, oh, I had no trouble communicating. I communicated very well. It's just that the players didn't like what I had to say.
And what Frank, I think, has come to realize, and it took him a while, but he has the last couple of years, that most players in the game today cannot do what he was able to do. Or Mantle, or Mays, or Aaron, or Clemente. You still get the stars, but sometimes that star complex, you think, well, why can't you do it like I did, not make mistakes? An inherent instinct that he had and some of the other great players.
Oh, he wasn't just a great player statistically. Oh. What a winner. Great base runner, take you out at second base. Underrated right fielder. Tremendous presence in a clubhouse. Burning will to excel. Hewlett inching in at third. Michael has flashed the sign to Hall. Hickey to the belt. Looks to bunt once more. Takes a strike.
That may have been 2-0 take all the way. Now Bucky Dent through the stick. Gene Michael has a couple of options, obviously. The bunt or the hit and run. And many times with a cleanup hitter, especially a guy who who you don't want to get in a hole. You don't want him to bunt it foul and get 2 strikes on him, so he may be hitting in this situation.
Nope. He bunts it foul, 2-2. Now let's see what they do.
Just what they didn't want. Tough left-hander like Hickey, you get him back even with you in the count. Almost had to throw a fastball for a strike for fear of going 3-1, and you put the bunt on, and you got him in a hole now. And when you're a cleanup hitter, Hall has always been a run producer. You're not called on to bunt, and sometimes cleanup hitters don't even like to bunt. And they don't really have their heart in it, let alone the tail.
34-year-old Kevin Hickey. Another Oriole reclamation project. Mattingly inching away from first. 1-run game in the last of the 8th. 5-4 Baltimore. Hickey will probably face 2 more hitters. Then you get to right-handed batters like Barfield and Kelly. And they've got Greg Olson, the spectacular rookie right-hander, who notched his 20th save last night. The 2-2 pitch. It gets away, and it might have hit the umpire, Larry Barnett. It got him on the head.
Wow, he was crossed up. They're asking, Dale Ford's asking, was that a foul tip? And I don't believe it was. And I don't know if Larry Barnett could even tell. Getting hit flush right on the padding above the mask, it looked like. And it looked like pass ball. They are asking if that was a foul ball. And Larry Barnett saying, don't ask me. You guys better make the call. So they're going to have a little conference with Koss, Dale Ford, and John Hirschbeck coming on. I don't think it hit the bat. They want to know if it was a foul ball. They're going to send the runner back. But he's crossed up. Oh, no. Well, the umpires really congregated to see if there was some kind of tip foul. Larry Barnett couldn't help at all. And first of all, Dale Ford at second, from his vantage point, he wasn't sure because he's told the runner to hold up and was about ready to send it back to first base. He thought it was a foul ball, and the bat's obviously nowhere near.
Look at the way he staggers back. He looks like he's been rocked by a right hand from Mike Tyson.
So it's a pass ball. It appeared to be a cross-up. Not necessarily that Hickey crossed Quirk up. It can happen the other way where the catcher can flash a sign and sound silly, but could forget what he flashed and start moving over for a breaking ball and then get the fastball up and in. Anyway, Mattingly's in scoring position at second on the pass ball. Now Quirk makes another trip to make sure they got the sign straight with a runner on second for location and pitch selection.
So earlier, Bucky Dent was thinking sacrifice. Now a mere ground ball to the right side can move the tying run to third with only 1 out. Full count to Mel Hall. Just missed, and there's the walk.
Now we will probably see Frank Robinson wait till the right-handed pinch hitter is announced and then perhaps come in with Mark Williamson. And Slaught is a pretty good bunter. He is in the on-deck circle.
Oh, it missed by plenty.
Did he aim that ball, too? He didn't have a whole lot on it.
I wasn't watching the center field camera. I was watching it with the naked eye from behind the hitter. And it had me fooled. It didn't even come close.
So Slaught is going to be announced. Now comes Frank. He's got Mark Williamson ready if he needs him. He was the only one throwing a while ago deep in left center field. And if he comes in with a right-hander, Bucky Dent could counter with Tolleson or Polonia. We'll find out.
It'll be Williamson. Olson held back, at least for the time being. He envisioned the very situation in which he later found himself, but he couldn't get the job done. Mattingly and Hall. Mattingly singled. Hall tried to bunt. Didn't get the bunt down. Wound up drawing a walk. And Hickey was pulled. Wound up drawing a walk. And Hickey was pulled by Frank Robinson.
Mattingly didn't hit the ball that hard, but basically they were protected with a 1-run game. The first baseman Traber guarding the line against a double, and he just sneaked it through. But walking Hall when he's up there to try and bunt was really the cardinal error that Hickey made. Now it's Williamson to Slaught, and he's going to be bunting also.
Slaught hitting for Phelps. They look for the bunt. He gets it down. Williamson's play will be to first. A fly ball could tie it. A base hit could give the Yankees the lead.
Except Frank could elect to walk Barfield and get to Kelly, who's a tough man to double, but he might be able to strike him out. I would think they're going to walk the bases loaded to try and set up a force at home plate. And Kelly, an inexperienced hitter, with Barfield with over 20 home runs. We'll find out.
Now, Slot will remain in the game as the DH, which means that if something happened to Guerin, Slot could come in and catch. But once the DH plays a position, you lose the DH for the rest of the game, and the pitcher would have to bat. Slot's the only true catcher Dent had in reserve.
Playing the middle of the infield, back with one out. Only Traber up close at first.
A strike to Barfield from Williamson. Jesse's 0 for 3.
So what Frank is doing with one out to Barfield, he's saying, look, we're going to concede a sacrifice fly, a ground ball. We're going to concede the run off third, but we don't want to bring the infield in. We're on the road. We hit at least one more time, or you might sneak it through and the game might be over. A lot of options. The option I might have used is walking Barfield.
Kelly waiting on deck. Off the outside corner, 1-1.
Frank perhaps feeling that Barfield, having struck out 118 times going in, that Mark Williamson is a sinker ball, slider ball pitcher, basically, not really a power pitcher, but he still feels he might be able to strike him out.
Yanks have been down 3-0 and 5-2. Now they've crept back to 5-4. Runners at second and third, one out. Bottom half of the eighth. The 1-1 pitch. In on him, and he bounces it foul. We welcome those of you who watched the Toronto-Milwaukee game. Toronto keeps the heat on the Orioles, winning 7-0. Can you believe this? Dave Steve is the prince of heartbreak. It's his 5th career one-hitter. Now, Nolan Ryan has thrown, what, 11 or 12 complete game one-hitters in his career, and he's often flirted with no-hitters and had them slip away late. But he has the 5 career no-hitters, so at least that's plenty of consolation. Steve has never gotten a no-hitter, has thrown 5 one-hitters, and has 3 times come within an out of a no-hitter. Williamson's 1-2 pitch. Oh, 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Slider that didn't miss by much. It's quite a right-handed tandem they've got up there now in Toronto, along with the 3 left-handers, Flanagan, Key, and Cerruti. And you got young Todd Stottlemyre's pitched about 6 or 7 good outings, along with Dave Steve. So Stick telling the runner at second, watch the runner ahead of you. See what he's going to do. If he goes in on a contact play of some kind, you come, but don't run him off third base.
2 on, 1 out, the 2-2 pitch. The shadows here at Yankee Stadium now reach beyond the pitcher's mound.
Still not comfortable hitting. If the Yankees can beat Baltimore and Orioles still have the lead, Toronto would be just a half a game behind.
Even with the Yankees out of the race, this ballpark can still be a very dramatic setting late in the afternoon. Close ball game like this. Foul back, still 2-2.
That was a pitch that Barfield wasn't supposed to get a piece on. A slider low and away. There's Kevin Hickey again. He brought in. Base hit Mattingly. Walked to Hall. One of those specialists. Bucky Dent knew he's coming in, and Bucky got the 2 left-handers on against Hickey.
Another 2-2 offering from Williamson. This one is smacked down the left field side, but it's foul.
You know, Frank Howard, who was let go, and Dallas Peters had a lot to do, I think, with Jesse Barfield. He got him relaxed. Jesse coming over from Toronto. The rumors of trade for years. And Came off the bad wrist and the bad knee, and the Yankees give up Al Leiter for him, who's now throwing down in Dunedin, Florida. But Frank kind of relaxed him, and then George Steinbrenner sent Lou Piniella down and said, I want you to remake a swing. And Lou had a lot to do with him, getting it inside pitches better. That big late kick away, which I'm certain irritated Dallas Green, who had his own hitting coach, and Frank Howard. And Lou comes out of the broadcast booth.
Once more, full count.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if Frank Robinson, if it's not going to be another slider, not an intentional walk at first base over to Jesse, but even the pitch he hit that missed the foul pole was way inside off the plate. Only seen one strike in this series so far.
He didn't bite, and the bases are loaded.
He stayed with the slider.
Frank Robinson, the very picture of serenity. What's churning inside is another matter, but he's learned to conceal it. Mattingly at third. He opened the inning with a single. Hall at second. He followed with a walk. They each moved up on slot sacrifice. Then Barfield takes a 3-2 pitch low and away. The bases are loaded with one down. Kelly has only one official at-bat. He's singled. He's also walked and been hit by a pitch.
Hewlett's in tight at third. I'm surprised Traber at first isn't. Traber's playing behind the runner.
Inside, ball one. Work with the sign. Williamson with the pitch. Strike.
Kelly thought it was up, but it wasn't a bad pitch to hack at because it's up in the strike zone. When the condition's not good, it's almost a hanging slider that if he goes after it, if he could see it in these conditions, he could at least drive to the outfield, maybe get the sac fly.
Kelly hitting .326. Williamson's pitch. Jammed him and he fouls it back. Hickey gummed things up at the start of the inning. Now he's hoping that Williamson can get him and his team out of it.
This bullpen, a good portion of the year, has been excellent at saving inherited runners, and two of those runners still belong to Kevin Hickey.
We saw Williamson go to his mouth, but he was off the dirt surface of the mound, walking toward first base. Now he's back astride the rubber. Kelly, as you see, has never hit for the jackpot. What a spot this would be from the Yankee perspective. The 1-2 pitch. Called strike three.
He had to be looking slider. It was a fastball that was up in the strike zone and wasn't really too far out over the plate. With all the sliders and Kelly was in the on-deck circle when it was a steady diet of sliders, throwing to Jesse Barfield, even 3-2. And he got a fastball, and I wonder if he wasn't looking for a slider. That's got a lot of weight. He had to be guessing and guessed wrong. Or again, under these conditions, with that bright sun in center field, he maybe just had difficulty picking it up.
Guerin now, whose home run spelled the beginning of the end for Dave Johnson in the 7th. A 2-run shot that made it 5-4. Bases loaded with 2 out.
You wonder if that wasn't the trick that more and more teams are using now. You get the sign, you take your stretch, and then the catcher watches to see if the runner at second base is relaying the location of the pitch, or if they're trying to steal a sign and let on to the hitter, Garrett in this case. And if they feel that, you have them step off, you go out and you change your signs and hope they can't relay it. Catcher's got to be very careful he doesn't move too soon and tip off where the pitch is going to be. If that catcher's setting up inside to a right-handed hitter with a right-handed pitcher, it's not going to be a curveball, folks, or a slider. It's going to be a fastball. If he sets up outside, it could be either of them.
Breaking ball hit sharply to short. Ripken backs up, makes the flip. Rene Gonzalez recording the putout, and the Yankees leave the bases loaded with only one out. 10 or less.
It is welterweight. Is it about Keith's size or your size? Or, I forget how heavy. What's the weight? Is it 130?
Well, I guess I would be a
50?
welterweight. I'm 145. I guess that would be about welterweight.
Is that mentally or physically?
Well, 145 would be a pretty good mental score, would it not? If this were an IQ test. Working with you is an endurance test. It's a test of my tolerance.
What an outing by that guy, huh? To pick up Kevin Hickey. Hickey knew his job and couldn't do it. Didn't do it, and Mark Williamson comes on and gets Kelly and Guerin. The key one was Roberto Kelly with only one out. Took the fastball. There's Champ Summers.
And here's that man again, Joe Orsulak. And again, he's leading off an inning, which he did with a home run each of his last two at-bats. McCullers works. Swing and a miss.
Sac fly, single run scored, and 2 solo home runs in the 5th and 7th.
3 RBIs, 3 runs scored. 0-2 to count.
Unlikely cleanup hitter with his home run productions in the minors and the major leagues at Pittsburgh and even last year here. When you pick up the box score tomorrow, you say, man, that guy ought to be getting cleanup with what he's done. Makeshift cleanup hitter with Tedlin out.
And there was nothing cheap about either home run. And he hit them each. The first one might have gone about 415. Second one in the vicinity of 400 feet, each to right center.
Well, Frank Robinson showed the confidence, and early on this year he was platooning, and then he started playing him against all kind of pitching. Left, right, leading him off against some left-handed pitching. He has been said, and Moreland was talking about it before, he said Frank Robinson, a hitter's manager. And not that he doesn't understand pitching, he delegates to Al Jackson. What do you mean? He said, well, he said, yesterday, Orsulak, 3 balls, no strikes. A lot of managers wouldn't give him the take sign. He said he let Orsulak hit, and he got a base hit to keep a rally going. And he said, when you're a hitter, you love that. When you get the go sign 3-0, 2-0. He said he'll do it to guys throughout the lineup, even if the percentages don't look like they'd indicate you should.
After failing to cash in on their bases loaded opportunity in the 8th, the Yankees have these hitters scheduled in the 9th. Hensley Mullins, the number 9 man, the third baseman, due to lead off. Then Sachs and Espinosa. McCullers with another 2-2 to Orsulak. Sheets in his second at-bat. And without remotely condoning or minimizing what Colonia did, there may be some mitigating circumstances regarding what the young lady told him and what he was led to believe and what superficial factors would indicate somebody would believe about her age.
Which doesn't hold any water, apparently, according to the laws in the state of Wisconsin, whether it's consent or not. To a minor.
But it might mitigate the penalty,
yes,
is what I'm saying. Yes. They might take that into account.
He's a good little player here. If he stays here, it remains to be seen.
1 strike to Sheets. Moreland began the game as the DH. Grounded into a force play, then doubled and singled. Sheets entered the game when McCullers did in the 7th and popped to second in his only at-bat. Just looking for insurance in the ninth. The 0-1 pitch. Breaking ball, cut on and missed. You have to believe that Frank Robinson had some stats. Al Ripken Sr. with the signs on the lines at third. Had some stats indicating that over in the National League, Keith Moreland had good success against Walt Terrell.
He did. He was hitting over 400 against him. Forgotten specific numbers of the bats and the old Earl Weaver 3x5 cards. And also, he did want to hold a hitter in abeyance, the only left-handed hitter he would have in a pinch hit situation, although Sheets got in earlier in the ball game than for one at bat against a right-hander.
Yeah, as soon as Terrell left and another right-hander, McCullers came in, he immediately yanks Moreland for Sheets. So he was thinking a specific matchup, Moreland against Terrell, rather than a platoon situation. Runner goes. Talk about a jump. He was halfway there before the pitch was released. Look out, Kelly loses the ball in the sun.
Lost it.
Now here's Sheets almost running up Orsulak's back. And now Sheets has to put on the brakes and go back to second. And if anybody was covering, he would have been out. Orsulak breaks for the plate and scores. This will be on This Week in Baseball.
They're saying he didn't touch home plate. Now Larry Barnett waves him safe. Mueller's at third is saying he didn't touch home plate. And they were yelling from the bench, but Larry Barnett said he had. And the only reason Orsulak broke is he saw Sheets running up his back. Orsulak went down to second, stepped on second. Thought the ball was going to be caught. He retreats back to first. And then when he saw it was lost, watch Orsulak. He said, okay, he picks up the coach, can't find the ball. You can see Espinosa's trying to decoy him into thinking it's a ground ball. He couldn't find it. Now he's got to go back because he lost it in the sun. And Sheets is going to ride right up his back. Ripken stopping Orsulak. Orsulak says, I can't stop. Sheets is coming. Can you believe this? Did step right on the plate, though, didn't he? What a crazy, crazy play. We're going to have a pinch runner now down for Sheets. Milligan.
Looks like Randy Milligan going in as Frank Robinson says, listen, this entire experience has been so disorienting for everybody. We better get you off the paths before any more trouble ensues.
So he gets a double and I guess an RBI, or will they say that Orsulak scored on the throw?
Double and RBI is the way they call it.
Yeah, judgment could have said a double and crazy, crazy play. But that's a nice run for the Orioles to have, to make it a 2-run lead, to pad a little bit, changes some situations for the Yankees offensively when they come to the plate. There's Milligan.
Once with the Mets, briefly with the Pirates, and a contributor here in this surprising Baltimore season. Six-4 Birds. Pickoff. Close. Out. A comedy of errors in the space of 2 or 3 minutes on the bases. The first time the Orioles got away with it, actually profited from it. But this time, Robinson's boys are burned.
You will see the new patient, Frank Robinson. You just did. He wasn't going over to berate anybody, and what Milligan was probably doing was he was mesmerized looking at the signs and the timing by Espinosa and McCullers works. All Traber's trying to do is he's going to try to get the ball down to the right side. A base hit to the right side or ground ball to get him to third base. Crazy.
Traber grounds one to Mattingly, juggles it, still does it himself. That's the 5th runner, by the way, that McCullers has picked off this year. Despite this less than classic sequence, the Orioles have played good ball all year, and Robinson has them playing a fundamentally sound brand of baseball. This is an aberration. It's nothing typical. This is the latest in a season that a team that finished last the year before has ever occupied first place. The 1977 White Sox, GM Roland Heeman, by the way, went to about August 20th in first place in the AL West, having finished last the year before, but then relinquished it. These Orioles have gone beyond that.
That's apparently what happened to Roberto Kelly. They are not teaching, some people feel, the curveball very much in colleges, high schools, because the slider has become such a dominant pitch through the years. So to have a guy like Olsen and Gordon, 2 young players, come into the American League with, I won't say Bly-Levin like curveballs yet, because he's still got such a great one, but they are close. He had a rough stretch, they tell me, because they were calling his pitches from the stretch. Kansas City, a couple of other teams, where he basically throws 90 miles an hour with a great curveball, but they were looking at the placement of his glove in the stretch. And when the fingers of the glove were straight up in the air, in the stretch position, when he came to a stop, it was a curveball. When they were parallel to the ground, it was a fastball. And Al Jackson picked it up, and since then he's become dominant again.
The speedy Polonia bats from Mullens here. But the situation significantly altered by the insurance run on the top of the ninth. Polonia's speed becomes less important. He can't catch up with that high hard 1-0-2.
Last year when Olson came up, he threw a lot of curveballs earlier this year, and Al Jackson and Frank Robinson primarily, I think, said, look, you got to go back to your fastball. As good as your curveball is, when they're looking for it, they might hit a bad one. So he's starting to throw the ball 90 miles an hour at times. He's got 2 outstanding pitches. And he has no fear, which may be the best quality that any stopper can have. And Al Jackson talks about that a lot. He's had fun with this young pitching staff.
Quirk flashes the sign, and Polonia spoils another one. Doug Jones of Cleveland leads the American League with 30 saves. Plesac of Milwaukee, Russell of Texas, each with 28. Olson among the leaders, but far down the list with 20. Same figure as Dave Righetti, who leads the Yankees. Takes it high.
Heard Olson's curveball referred to sometimes about Steve Carlton, that even if you look for Carlton's slider, like if you look for Olson's curveball, it doesn't matter. If it's in a good spot, you still can't hit it. It could be a very dominant pitch. Polonia 5 for 13 as a pinch hitter.
He's been pretty successful popping off the bench for Dallas Green, now for Bucky Dent. And this one might drop in. The tying run will come to the plate in the person of Steve Sachs, who has hit 4 home runs for the year.
Second baseman, Steve Sachs.
Mike Ferrara already whispering in Polonia's ears. And the main thing they say is, we're 2 runs down, do not get doubled off on a line drive. Your run means nothing. Traber will play behind him. And they will guard the lines at third and first, because the runner Sachs is the guy you don't want in scoring position. They don't care what happens to Polonia at this point.
A double and 3 ground outs for Sachs. Started the day at 324. Swings on the first one. Shallow fly to center. Jefferson, fighting the sun himself, sees it and makes the catch.
I don't think he saw it right away either. And there were a lot of people coming over to help. Orsulak and Bradley, all the way from the right and left field positions, were coming over to help him out. He has a high fastball, and perhaps he thought it was out of the strike zone, and it was high. But he was going to jump at anything as close as he could. Look at this emotional reaction. You don't want to get behind with these conditions with that sun in center field if the guy's got this kind of curveball.
Emotional restraint is hardly a Sachs trademark. He plays on energy, plays on passion. He's not going to hold much back. Unless Espinosa hits into a double play, Mattingly's going to get a chance to bat and possibly tie this game. Espinosa also cuts on the first one. Ripken wants it. It's down to Mattingly.
You know, it's always a big decision when you've got a guy with the arm of a Greg Olson. And I say, well, gee, that kind of arm, we want him to go out there every 5th day and become our starting pitcher. Until you look at the nature of the game these days, whether it's a Jones or a Righetti in his prime or some of the other great ones, Mark Davis at San Diego. That guy can pitch 2-3 days in a row. You might see him 3-4 times a week. Let's find that closer that sets up the whole staff.
Donnie is 1 for 4, and he takes the ball. He's flied out, reached on an error, lined hard to center, and rolled a single to right.
Maloney at this point just holding first base. They are giving him second base, and let's see if he'll take it. Outfield is way back near the warning track now. This big ballpark, they don't want to double over their heads.
Chopped foul, 1-1. Mattingly has 15 home runs, 84 RBIs.
Look at where Bradley is in left. Playing about 380 feet away. Frank's moving somebody else even farther back.
6-4 Baltimore, bottom of the ninth. The 1-1. Checked his swing as he fell away from it, and now he's in a 1-2 hole.
I'm not so sure he fell away from it. I don't think he even saw it. The ball's a fastball, and 91-2, who knows? But he throws the ball at times on some speed guns up to 93. And this ball comes very close to hitting Donnie.
Bologna at first with 2 down. Olson looking for save number 21. Hits sharply. Traber plays it with his chest. Olson covers. They still got him, and the ball squirts free. He beat him to the bag, but couldn't hold the ball.
Young Greg Olson was slow coming over. It was Bob, but even at that, he didn't break off the mound, and apparently thought Traber was going to take it himself. By the time he recovered, it was a race between him and Mattingly. And then they still had him until the ball popped out. Mattingly sliding in the first, trying to avoid a collision. Hit very sharply by Mattingly. Olson late.
Left fielder, Mel Hall.
Never did have it, did he? T1?
Yeah, that's the ruling. Error 1. Since Traber's throw was about belt high, Olson, as you see, a bit late to react, but he still beats Mattingly over there, but can't hold it. Up steps Mel Hall. A double, a sacrifice fly, a single, and a walk. Olson's first pitch. Swing and a miss.
Different looking fastball. That looked like it was a wind-to-seam fastball that tailed away and had a little sinking action, opposed to that righty one that he throws in the low 90s. He wasn't going to let him pull it, though, was he? Fastball that tailed away outside part of the plate.
Hall has hit 9 home runs. Strike, 0-2. The Orioles know that Toronto has already won 7-0 over Milwaukee. They need a win here to stay a game and a half up on Toronto and forge a 5.5 game lead on the fading Brewers.
Right where Jamie Quirk set up. Fastball riding away. Wanted Hall, if he's going to swing, to hit it to the big part of the ballpark, center field, not the short portion right.
See what Quirk sets up here. If they try and get Hall to chase one,
fastball away.
And he wouldn't bite.
Did you notice, Jamie? He got the call in the outside corner from Barnett, and that time he put the fastball sign down and moved another 8-10 inches out. See if he could get that one or have Hall swing at it. You get a close pitch call against you, as Hall did for the second strike. To start your strike zone sometimes, you go after bad pitches. That's what Quirk was hoping for.
2 on, 2 out, and the 1-2 pitch. Bouncing ball, Traber another chance. He'll do this by himself after handling a very tricky hop. Olson has his 21st save. The Yankees strand 2. And the Orioles win it 6-4. Dave Stieb threw another one-hitter today, an infield single by Robin Yount in the 6th to put the pressure on Frank Robinson's team. And they respond. They've now won 3 out of 4 in this series. The Yankees continue to disappear in the American League East.
Well, Milwaukee is fading too now. They fall 5.5 back. Does that make it a 2-team race? Baltimore and Toronto, they play the last 3 games of the season in the Sky Dome. And really, you know, Baltimore may make it, but Toronto's pitching staff 1 through 10 and the way they're hitting and their balance with Mookie and Mazzilli, they've got so much bench strength now. It's going to be hard, very difficult for Baltimore to hold on. I say it again, Toronto should win it. I don't know if they will.
The Yankees are now 12.5 back, 15 under 500. They are actually closer to the woeful last-place Tigers than they are to the first-place Orioles. Any pretense about the Yankees being contenders, which was always a mirage anyway, has been completely dashed.
Isn't it something now when a team is having the kind of year Baltimore is, one guy picks up the other. Hickey couldn't get the 2 left-handers out. He's been good at that all year long. And they load him up, and then in comes Mark Williamson, who gets them out of a tough inning. The base is loaded, and then you get your closer. And more often than not, when Golson comes in, it's about all over with.
There were 3 home runs in this ball game. Joe Orsulak hit a pair of solo shots in the cleanup spot. The first home runs by a cleanup man that the Orioles have...
Who you gonna call?